All right. It looks like we are live. Hi. I didn't stream yesterday because I wound up. My evening actually wound up being pretty busy. My daughter had her last concert of the year, and but I guess the regular photographer couldn't show up, so like I just got out my stabilizer, which I think I may have left in the car. Um, I have a stabilizer for my phone because I do plan on like shooting footage and video from it, and I've already gotten a good test of what it looks like to shoot on iPhone, especially because I have it. I had it set to record in 4K, but I just did thirty frames a second because you don't. I mean, the whole point is that like it's a concert. You don't need 60 frames for that. So I did not, but it was very good. It was very fun. And honestly, I could not be prouder. Truly. Like, oh, okay, no, it's fine. Yeah, I honestly could not be prouder because they were just phenomenal. They were amazing, honestly. And apparently, I got a couple of followers on Kick actually when when I was last live, which I think was pretty tight. But I was just like doodling, and I was doing this redesign of like a literal redesign that I tried to so like I have like a fascination with like gosh, what can we call it? Also, I okay, so a lot of times I'll look here. This is where OBS is, and for whatever reason I just want to look at me right there, but it's like I have it set so that I'm looking at this monitor. Like I don't know, I'm like a bird. I have to always look at my reflection. And but regardless, the concert was absolutely amazing. I got the whole 2 hours of it. What I need to do is throw it into Sony Vegas and play around with it a little bit because oh my gosh, it was amazing. The only thing is that I know for sure a lot of the stage was like too much white, too much white, too much light. So that's a really big reason why I really want to throw it into Vegas and see what I can't do with it before I give it to the choir teacher. But it was oh my god, it was so amazing. It was amazing. Like it honestly like I know it's like high school choir, but like those kids were really fucking good, man. Like they were so good. And like oh my gosh, this little boy. He's not little. He is like a literal like senior. But one of the seniors did Mr. Cellophane from Chicago. Chicago's probably my favorite musical of like all fucking time. I really want to go see it on Broadway. Um, I've never seen anything on Broadway, but I do want to see. I want to see the Chicago musical, and it doesn't even have to be on Broadway. Like I want to see Chicago and The Lion King and Wicked too. I've never seen Wicked, but around Halloween time, all of those girlies, all the Halloween girlies, like lose their shit for like Wicked and what is it? What is it? What is this? What is the movie? It's a movie. It's a movie, and it's got like three witches in it, and like there's like they did like a sequel like last year or something like that. Like it's not coming to me. I'm not a Halloween girly. If somebody does know it, I mean, free field. Free field. Feel free to put it in the chat, cause God, I can't think of it. I'm sure someone somewhere, if they do see this VOD, is gonna be like that. Whatever. Like y'all know what I'm talking about. There's like a movie with like three witches, and all the Halloween bitches lose their mind over that damn movie every single year. And it's like they finally made a sequel last year, but I didn't. Like, I saw it and I enjoyed it. I thought it was weird because I was just like, holy shit, this is like modern day. That's like a modern Walgreens. What? So it was cute. I like that they added some cool touches like that. But the main reason that we're here today is because I wanted to finish drawing this redesign of a redesign. And like I got this whole cosmic rabbit thing uh because I didn't even go into that, did I? So what I was going to say is that I really like the whole cosmic horror kind of thing. Very much into that. Like honestly, one of my favorite series, I'm not gonna fuck with y'all, is Sucker for Love. I love Sucker for Love because it's like it's the premise of it is incredibly silly to be like, yes, I'm going to date this immortal goth mommy before she takes over the world and completely annihilates reality. Or well, the new one's set in like a haunted house thing. It's like nah, it's the new one is set in like a weird never-ending time loop kind of thing. I don't know. I like it though. I do. But oops. Oh, I didn't notice that that's a regular pen. Apple Pencil. Yeah, my notebook's still on my desk. I recorded some footage about Elden Ring cuz I was like everyone's losing their mind over this whole Michaela's Melina theory because it's like holy shit, it's been in front of our faces the whole time. But like nobody, I don't know, not I guess not enough people were like really paying attention. I guess it wasn't until Miyazaki was like, yeah, nah, no, there's some things I haven't heard anyone say anything. So I was like, huh. Anyways, look at these cute little fucks. Little cosmic cloud dude. Little orc cloud in the belly. This shit's so fucking adorable, man. I gotta figure out how to make these things like glow in the appropriate way. But oh man, when I started on this, I was just like, dude, this is so fucking good, man. This is just so fun. And yeah, I was trying to really just put like a spin on Clefairy that makes it just a little bit more, I don't know, fun, colorful. Like I don't know, like there's certain Pokemon like Clefairy and Wigglytuff and like it's just like, yeah, I get it, you're here. Yeah, I get it, you're a fucking tank, but like also, Jesus Christ, man, can you give me a goddamn break? I just want to get whatever items you're gonna give me in this raid. That's why I'm not playing Violet. I do have Violet, I have the DLC, but it just it's so much. But anyways, I also Pyrocynical dropped a new a new video, and if you know anything about me, you know I fucking love Pyro. But also, this motherfucker just put in the hashtag BBL jersey. Oh my god. And oh my god, my daughter walked in my room one day and was like, she was telling me something, but she just ended the conversation with singing the BBL jersey. BBL jersey. I was like, get the fuck out of here. I don't know why that's so funny, but it's like because it's clearly like AI generated too, but it's like just the premise of like, I don't know. I mean, listen, the way DJ Academics just like fled the internet and then also say, if I go down, I'm taking all of you with me. It ain't looking good for a lot of these motherfuckers. But anyways, let's get the pyro and watch cute art.
Have you guys heard of this Kendrick Lamar guy? Turns out he's a rapper, and he's got some stuff to say.
This rap beef between Drake and Kendrick started 5 months ago, to my estimation, when Drake came out with the song First Person Shooter featuring J. Cole.
There was this drought of diss tracks where I think a lot of them that were coming out were just unbearably cringe. It was like Redditors writing poetry back and forth. But now, with Drake versus Kendrick, holy cow.
Ah,
Kendrick Lamar and Aubrey Drake Graham, two of the most mythical people within the rap industry, are now going head to head. I know I'm a little bit late to this story. If anything, we're kind of just like poking the little corpse left over, which is probably Drake's, let's be fair. Now, Kendrick Lamar needs no introduction. He is one of the most highly regarded rap artists of all time, and he's the only musician outside of classical and jazz to be awarded the Pulitzer Prize. The only thing I can compare the Pulitzer Prize to, you know how YouTubers can get like 100k sub trophy, a million sub trophy? You know when PewDiePie got that like really special ruby one and it's a bro fist? That's the Pulitzer Prize. It's the thing that everyone wants. And a lot of his music is held in high regard because it focuses a lot on social awareness and mental health. Now, should I really be sat here doing a video breaking down Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef? No. Do I have any musical knowledge on Kendrick Lamar and Drake? No. I mean, look at my Spotify profile. I just listen to Young Lean, Blade, and Echo 2K on repeat. I have that kind of weaponized autism where I can just listen to the same 3 artists from birth until death. Some would call it a superpower. I call it the Rock of Sisyphus. Believe
I feel this so much because I literally am listening to like my main playlist in Apple Music, which like yeah, most of the shit in my playlist from Apple Music is a bunch of shit from like I mean like Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco. Like I'm way back in the alternative in 2005. Like fucking Timberland Shock Value 1 and 2. Man, the album lives in my heart rent free. Fucking Mika. I'm sure you've heard Grace Kelly or Lollipop. Like man, yeah, no, there's a lot of artists. A lot of my music tastes come from shit that I heard between the ages of like 12 to like 17. That's like the span of years where like a lot of my music comes from. Like it's crazy that I'm 31 and the only song I can quote word for word, no mess up, no fuck up, is fucking A Milli. Like I remember when I was like 13 making my MySpace profile, and like me and all my friends were on like Skittles multiplayer on like okay, so also too, but well, hold on, one thing at a time before we get sidetracked. Yeah, like on MySpace, I remember like at one point there was like everybody had changed their name to I Go By Them Goon Rules. Like we're not a bunch of snotty-nosed 13-year-olds that know absolutely fucking nothing about the hood. Or at least I did. Some people did. I unfortunately was born when my parents were in their suburban era, so I've kind of, for the most part, I've missed out on a lot of the hood stuff. It just, it's one of the things where I'm just like, I understand it, but unfortunately, I do not represent it well. To be completely honest. Like, don't get me wrong. I'll say nigga. I'll act black. I am black. Fuck else am I supposed to do? But I don't know all the ins and outs. Like, I honestly, I'm very grateful that, God, my ex is he's such a name in the Cincinnati, like, the music space, music and video space that isn't, like, I'm so glad he's got that street cred. Because I'm like, there definitely been times where I've, like you know, like you just got that feeling that something would have went wrong. But I feel like people have recognized me, known that I'm like, whose baby mama that is, and they just like, oh, mind your business. And I'm like, cool, not arguing. Like, sure, I will happily take the extra perk of just I was about to say just being your baby mama, but I'm like, that's honestly kind of foreshortening like what literally was a third of my adult life was spent with that man. So I won't insult the both of us by just being like yeah, nah, we won't do that. But what we will do is get back to Pyrocynical so we can listen to this man make haha funny.
Mate, I was not going to talk about this topic at all until my chat absolutely harassed me one stream to listen to one of Kendrick's diss tracks on Drake.
Pyro. Wait, what's that smell? Oh, it's his commission, man.
So yeah, I'm uneducated, uninitiated, and you can just call me a grifter. But to be fair, I saw Hassan and Ludwig do it as well, so I think I can get away with it. Now, Drake needs no introduction. Certified lover boy, Canadian actor, singer, and rapper. Now, it's funny I say actor because a lot of people didn't actually know that Drake was, you know, an actor. Well, that usually comes from his steak-sponsored streams where he pretends to actually act like he's caring about anything he's doing and not just collecting a huge paycheck.
I don't even know how to work it. Like, just keep clicking that.
Now, Drake initially got his start as Jimmy Brooks on Degrassi. You know that meme picture that everyone was throwing around of Drake in the wheelchair? That was where it was from. That's the origin. But afterwards, he basically started pursuing music in 2006. Now, his first 3 albums banged because
I was in fucking 9th grade in 2006. Like, damn. Like, yo, it was so crazy. Like I was recording the concert last night and they did like a senior recognition because it's that time of year. Actually my oldest nephew graduated, which I'm just like, holy, that's crazy. Okay, sorry, I heard something else. I thought I heard my dog. But yeah, no, they were doing like the senior recognition. And like one of the pictures they had up, because like they did like baby pictures, and then like what they look like now. And first of all, some of them kids look like completely different people, which I think is both awesome and scary. But like some of the pictures were marked like 2005, 2006, and like all the adults in the audience were like, guys are all like, wait, what? When were you born? Because we all, like, we remember where we were. Like, it literally, like, I remember where I was in 2006. I was a kid. I'm like, damn. It's a kid when you were fucking born. Like, oh my god. Like, my daughter, so first of all, she has no filter. Like, as much as I want to be like my parents and be like, I will pop you in the mouth, I'm like, I'm not gonna do all that shit. But, like, please watch a goddamn mouth, okay? I cuss. You don't cuss. You got a couple more years for you can cuss. But I was like, dude, like we were talking about something. I can't even remember. But I was just like, well, you'll be 18 in 3 years. Because I was like, you'll be 18 in 4 years. And I was like, oh, no, you'll be 18 in 3 years. And she was like, why? I'll be 18 in 3 years. Wait, Mom, wait. Mom! And I'm like, what the fuck? Has that never occurred to you? And she's like, no. And I'm like, aw. Because, baby, I was counting down. But my parents are certainly not me. Like, that's just the fact. My parents are not me. So, like, yeah, no, that the fact that, like, it hasn't even dawned on her that she's like, man, I wish I could be grown. Like, oh my god, I was counting down. Like, and, it wasn't even that I was, actually, no, I wasn't even really counting down. If I had the demeanor and knowledge that I have today, I certainly would have been fucking counting down. But nah, I would, like, if my parents didn't suck so much, I'd probably still be at home. I would be very okay with living with my parents, because you know what I do? Go in my fucking room and mind my business. You need the bill, here's the money. Goodbye. Like, like, me personally, if I did, like, yeah, nah, if I didn't have kids and shit, and it was like I just, like, went to college and came home, bruh, I'd be at home. Give a shit. I can mind my business, and I'm sure they'd be like, no weed in the house. And I'm like, that's fine. I can hotbox in my car. Like, but actually, nah, that might be annoying because my mom is like one of those Bible thumpers, even though she does not practice what she preaches. So it's like, take that with a grain of salt. Like that definitely would get on my nerves, because that's definitely what she did to my older brother, when he moved out. Like she was like because he would come in late and stuff, and we had like an alarm system, but it's like, I mean, if he's working late or whatever, like right after he turned 18, like he would be working late or like out late or something. And I'm like, yeah, no, he could just be like, hey, can you leave the alarm off? Or like, there's better ways this shit could have been done, but like the way my family just makes shit so fucking unbearable sometimes, it's like, yeah, what can you do? But shit, get the fuck out of Dodge. Anyways.
Each individual one always had at least a top 10 single. And Drake overall is statistically one of the highest selling artists of all time. Now, one thing I've noticed for people in industries that are the most popular, they do get memed on the most. So for example, like all these memes you see of Drake, like Drake be the kind of guy that would like, smell a pie in the other room and float towards it like a Looney Tunes character. And I mean, he really hasn't helped himself because some of his music has ended up being a little bit more corporate. Like for example, Tootsie Slide. That was a song that was basically just trying to like shill a TikTok dance, hoping to go viral. It's basically the equivalent of Aiden Ross pretending to do drugs on stream just so he acts all like, oh, it's really got to me, guys, so people can clip it and he goes viral. But again, Drake's accolades cannot be ignored. 13 #1 hits on the Billboard Hot 100. A joint #1 record for the most amount of singles sold by a single artist. Which, funnily enough, was actually tied with Michael Jackson. Oh, but it doesn't stop there. The Drake train never ends. Including the most top 10 singles and the most charted songs from 2018 to 2023. Drake also held the record for the most simultaneously charted songs in 1 week. I know a lot of people are going to go into this video hating Drake, and I'm not trying to dissuade that fact, but I'm just trying to communicate that he's one of the most successful and richest artists in the entire world. But there's one problem. Once you reach the top of the ladder, where do you actually go? You're no longer climbing this ladder of artistic passion to, make the kind of content you want to put out there, write the lyrics. It becomes commercialized, and you're only really putting more content out there to pay the bills. Maybe you can get a new $250,000 bed frame, or more importantly, to stay on the top so no one else bumps you off, because the only thing worse than getting in the entire world. But there's one problem. Once you reach the top of the ladder, where do you actually go? You're no longer climbing this ladder of artistic passion to, make the kind of content you want to put out there, write the lyrics. It becomes commercialized, and, you're only really putting more content out there to pay the bills. Maybe you can get a new, $250,000 bed frame, or more importantly, to stay on the top so no one else bumps you off, because the only thing worse than getting bored at the top is someone eventually bumping you. And throughout the years, even though Drake is one of the most successful people in the music industry, a lot of people have gravitated to still incredibly successful music artists, but nowhere near the level of success that Drake has, like for example Kendrick. Now, one thing that's really common, especially in rap, is bravado, like flexing the stuff that you got, the ice on your wrist, the money, the cars, because usually a lot of people in the industry, they come from nothing, so when they feel that they've got like a lot of material wealth, they need to flex it. That is just part of the industry naturally, but it's definitely something that Drake seems to do a lot more than others, to the point where it just comes off as like really artificial. And that's where a lot of the animosity has came from with Kendrick and Kendrick's fan base. Now, Drake's character and reputation has already got him like a pretty bad rep with a lot of people in the rap industry. So to fully understand everything, so I don't just say the entire video, Drake le bad, Kendrick le good, I gotta law master a little bit and talk about previous things that Drake has done that are le bad. So I want to talk about 2 other beefs that Drake had before Kendrick even got involved, involving Megan Thee Stallion and Pusha T. So I would like to take you back to the mythical year of 2018. This was definitely a time to be alive. This is when Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, the first Spider-Man game came out on the PS5, and was also the year where one of the best films ever made came out, Gotti, starring John Travolta.
Let me tell you something. I started in a fucking gutter.
It's 4 out of 10 on IMDb. So in that year, while beefing with Pusha T and Kanye West, Drake dropped a diss track, and this is called Duppy Freestyle. Now, the entire point of this diss track was to basically refute claims that were like levied against Drake. Like Pusha T did a track called Infrared and basically claimed that Drake had like ghostwriters and stuff, as well as calling Pusha T an evil spirit, hence the name of the track, Duppy. I'll be honest though, claiming someone as popular as Drake has ghostwriters is kind of like saying water is wet. Next, they're probably going to make the earth-shattering discovery that people like Jojo Siwa actually lift their music as well. I'm sure you've seen that online. Like, she did this song called Karma, and it was basically found out that it was a song that Miley Cyrus had wrote for her, but like didn't even end up using, so put it in the recycling bin. And then Jojo Siwa's team basically plucked it out, gave permission a little bit later, and just basically reused the song. Honestly, I try to avoid talking about Jojo Siwa as much as I can, but that one clip of her at the red carpet is...
Dream guest on my podcast? Oh my gosh. I mean, honestly, let's spice things up. One of my exes. Oh?
Dream guest on my podcast? Let's spice it up a bit. What, one of my exes?
And then 4 days later, Pusha T dropped a diss track called The Story of Adidon. And this basically just addressed Drake directly. Now, the funny thing is...
First of all, goddamn, that cover jump scare. Anyways, that fucking whatever that arm thing is that she does, it is so mind-bogglingly perplexing because it's like I don't know, it's like what if you're in the middle of drumming and somebody just grabs your arm? Like that's what it seems like. But I'm like, what? Once somebody pointed it out that it was just like, this is a thing, I'm just like, that's weird as fuck.
About this diss track, it actually reuses the music that was from Jay-Z's song The Story of OJ, and obviously it goes without saying OJ is not someone that was liked at all. I mean, if he was still alive, you can go onto any one of his Twitter posts and he would have been ridiculed. Now, this diss track is really, really important because it brought new law to the rap community that Drake actually had a son called Adonis, and this is a kid that Drake had, but he purposely chose to keep him away from the limelight. And in the diss track as well, Pusha T goes after some of Drake's family members and also members of the OVO sound label, which, believe me, will be very, very relevant later. Now, ever since being forced in the limelight, Drake has taken full responsibility of Adonis, even setting him up with a production company to film his own music video, Adonis My Man Freestyle.
Fortnite, we like Fortnite, we like Fortnite.
Which is, it's one of the songs of all time. However, in 2022, there was a diss track dropped by Drake and 21 Savage. The same 21 Savage that got paid to go on an Aiden Russ stream where he basically scammed him out of a card game, by the way. They released Circo Loco. And this is where Drake throws some shade at Megan Thee Stallion. In particular, their altercation with Tory Lanez, who's another Canadian rapper and singer, not Drake. He's basically claiming that Megan just lied entirely about an incident where she was shot, because there were claims going around at the time that she was shot in the foot by Tory, and Drake is basically saying, nah, you made it up. You got no receipts. You're a liar. But keep in mind, this has actually been debunked, and yes, Tory did shoot Megan Thee Stallion in her foot. So obviously that wasn't a good look for Drake because he's making these diss tracks and basically just flat out lying about things. And then in 2024, it finally happened. Megan clapped back with Hiss. You know what's weird? I said Hiss, and it actually unlocked a core memory of when Leafy was here, was still on YouTube, and he was like asking people to do like, you know, hiss in the comment section. Oh, that's an old memory. That is an old memory I just unlocked right there. Now, keep in mind that Hiss diss track was actually more aimed at Nicki Minaj, and that spawned some god tier beef, which personally, I think is actually even more funny than the Kendrick and Drake beef, because Nicki Minaj responded with a track called Bigfoot.
You eat babies. Everyone knows that.
Which has pretty much gone down in history as one of the worst diss tracks of all time. Now, again, like I said, look at me. Do I listen to rap? Hell no. With this weak jawline, this hairstyle, you could just tell that I listen to Blade's Echo 2K pretty much on repeat. But even I caught wind of how terrible this Nicki Minaj response was. Mostly because towards the end of the song, she's just like mumbling to herself, almost like it just went completely off script.
Pussy girl them too.
And the top comment on the diss track at the minute, which perfectly encapsulates the video, this perfectly captures the feeling of being trapped on public transportation with a crackhead. But what's important about Megan's original diss track before Nicki Minaj had a complete meltdown was this line that she threw shade at Drake for. These hoes don't be mad at Megan, these hoes mad at Megan's law. Jesus, me reading that out, you can just tell like all I listen to is Aphex Twin. God, I love sparkling water. You know, you drink it and it like burns your eyes, like your eyes feel like they're watering. It's actually it's the best feeling in the world, man. Now, for context, that wasn't just a throwaway line, because Megan's Law is an actual law in the US. And it basically states that law enforcement has to disclose public information about registered sex offenders. Now, Nicki Minaj in particular took a lot of offense to this, mostly because her husband, Kenneth Petty, is an actual registered sex offender. I'll be honest, I have to make a concession. I listened to a lot of Nicki Minaj as a kid, in particular the Starships music video. It was probably because she was basically just there on the beach shaking her ass the entire time, or as today's generation would say, rizzing her gyat. God, she was like 22 when she made that, eh? I'm 27 tomorrow. Fuck. I'm actually 27 tomorrow. Bro, it's so over for me. And even though Nicki Minaj took most of the heat away because everyone assumed the line was directed at her, a lot of people thought, could this be directed towards Drake and his company, OVO Sound? Now, with all of that law built, we can finally jump into the main case of Kendrick versus Drake. Now, in October 2023, Drake and J. Cole... I'm really sorry. Like, again, I should not be talking about rap music at all, but when I think of J. Cole, the only thing I think of is this really obscure meme of Pennywise the Clown saying J. Cole is down here, and they just cement off the entire street. Wait, I'll see if I can find it. J. Cole. J. Cole. J. Cole doesn't make music. J. Cole is down here and they just cement off the entire street.
Damn.
Oh, man.
And that's exactly why J. Cole was wondering what he was having for dinner while all this shit was going on. No, actually, oh my gosh. I was actually gonna draw like a simple little comic of like different artists who like were like, yo, did you see this? And then like, I'm not involved. Like, the main thing I actually stopped and thought about, and I was just like, wait a minute. Kendrick made a diss that was like, there's no big three, there's just big me. And I was just like, damn, where's Eminem? Like, don't get me wrong, I love Eminem. Like, Eminem clearly loves what he does. Definitely try. Like, I feel like it's nice that even though he does still have that aggressive, really, like, tries to make it offensive music, with the exception of Killshot. Good lord. Straight into Machine Gun Kelly's rap career. And, but, like, yeah, I was just, like, thinking of, like, different people who, like, were not bothered whatsoever. It was just, like, yo. And I was just thinking about, like Nicki Minaj and Eminem, like, chilling on a beach or something. Like, he's, like on a vacation. And he's like, dude, did you see this? And she's like, I don't want to, I'm just like, I don't care. She's like, nah. And then, fucking ASAP Rocky burying one of the kids in the sand somewhere, like, like, that would be awesome. And just, like, yeah, no, I was just thinking of, like, different people, like, J. Cole thinking about what he's gonna have for dinner, and, Eminem and Rihanna hanging out, and she's just like, nah. Like, oh my gosh, I maybe that might still happen, just because it made me laugh, so it might make someone else laugh, you know. Who knows?
Oh god, that's funny. So Drake and J. Cole collaborated on the track First Person Shooter, not to be confused with the Ray William Johnson band Your Favorite Martian, who made a first person song called Boom Headshot. Now this track they do is basically both of them kind of like discussing their impact on rap culture. Now Drake and J. Cole obviously, you know, stroke their own ego a bit and just go into how successful they are, but then J. Cole throws some lyrics out basically saying that other rappers start beef with them to kind of siphon their fame, to leech off them. And this is also where J. Cole claims, due to his discography, that he is considered one of the greats alongside Kendrick Lamar and Drake. Here's some of the lyrics, for example. I'd read them out on screen, but I'd rather just show them because I looked at my Spotify right now and my most recent plays are 100 Gex, LaRue, and TV Girl, so it's probably best I don't say anything. Although I do like the inclusion of the Spider-Man meme, the infamous meme where they're all pointing at each other, that was even used in like the most recent animated Spider-Man film. But in that Spider-Man meme, he's basically referring to himself Drake and Kendrick, saying that they're like the three greats. And then also going on to say that he's in his own league as well. Now, unsurprisingly, Kendrick did not agree with this comparison whatsoever. And then fast forward a little bit to March 2024. Now, 2024, even though the year isn't over, has been an amazing year. So much has came out. We've had so many games like... well, all right, ignore that. We've had some great films this year. Like, for example, Madam Web and Roadhouse and... Argyle. Wait, did Argyle come out this year? No, it did. Okay. Oh, Jesus. There's been nothing this year. It's already May. But anyway, in this year, Kendrick actually appeared on Future and Metro's booming track Like That. And this is where Kendrick straight up responds to J. Cole, basically saying like, no. We're not a three. I'm at the top. You guys are the peasants. Again, here are the lyrics. Not going to read it all out verbatim because the video is already white enough. But you can basically see that Kendrick is calling out First Person Shooter, the song, by name, and even says that he's basically at the top alone. He also makes this weird reference to the 1983 novel by Stephen King, Pet Sematary, basically implying that they're dogs and they're going to be put out and buried in the cemetery. He also mentions Drake's recent album, For All the Scary Dogs, which is where the first person track actually appeared in. And he basically said that he's going to take his K, AK-47 for the uninitiated. And then he goes on about Drake and J. Cole's 9, basically saying that he's going to bring an AK and Drake and J. Cole are just like doing an eco round. And then obviously connecting it back to a K9, like a dog, a K, an AK, and a 9mm. Kendrick basically saying that, don't worry, it's just me. And I will blow you out of the game, no problem. I don't know if any of you saw where world-famous streamer Jinxie went against the Sidemen, KSR's best mates, and Jinxie absolutely demolished them, mostly because they were basically learning impaired because they had no idea how to play the game or that even wall banging was a thing. That is basically what Kendrick is playing in his head, how the match is going to go down. And then shortly after that diss track dropped, J. Cole dropped another song. Now, this is called 7 Minute Drill, and it's basically just a straight-up response to Kendrick. Going on to say that Lamar's work has... fallen off and he's better than him. Also makes fun of Lamar's height and stature. Honestly, the claiming of falling off basically has no validity whatsoever because, you know, every single artist, when they make music or any kind of content creator or just anyone in media, they're always gonna have highs and lows. But I do like how falling off is just repeatedly used as this one way to try to get under someone's skin, because believe me, no one that has any kind of presence online likes being told that they fall off. It really does get under their skin. I mean, thankfully, me, for example, I've been told that I've fell off so many times that I just don't even take it literally anymore. Like, I have had that used so many times, it's rewired my brain, so I just don't even address it as an insult now. Almost like it's some kind of Chinese water torture, like a droplet hitting my head over and over with the insult saying, fill off, fill off, fill off. I mean, look at Lessons in Meme Culture. He made a video talking about why is everyone commenting on videos saying fell off, and he blames me for that. He says it's my fault. Well, not my fault.
That's so funny because I'm not going to fuck with y'all. Every time I would come to a pyro video, that's always in the comment. No views, bro fell off. No, 3 seconds, no views, bro fell off. What's with this cinema intro? Yeah. See, pyro critical and low. Covering the Drake and Kendrick beef is so funny and goofy. Why the fuck are they covering this? Never upload again. Pyro is finally over. Thank you, Pyro, for spending 40 minutes explaining what music is. Your hair looks like that one time Moses split the ocean. Like, okay, so I guess they're just here fucking roasting this nigga, but Pyro only listens to Blade. Why is he covering this? For all the scary dogs. Peanut butter for seconds, Brett slice. Good kid and mess. Oh god. Tory. Oh yeah, Tory Lanez. That's funny. None of this would have happened if Ninja didn't make Drake. 16 views in 32 seconds. Pyro's back up. My bad. Like Comment Writer 01 once said, it's never over. Okay, that's good. That's good stuff.
Oh, but basically my community. Now, I don't agree with the lyrics at all, but it's still pretty funny that someone else is saying that The Simpsons fell off. Because I'll be honest, like at some point, I might do a video on how The Simpsons fell off because that needs to be studied. I've seen so many videos comparing like all the IMDb ratings of Simpsons episodes and how we're going into like the double-digit seasons, and it just looks awful. But yeah, it's pretty obvious that J. Cole is basically trying to say, you were good at one point, but now you're kind of falling off. Your albums are dwindling in quality, which again, I feel it's this claim that like anyone on earth can say about someone popular, and then you like people be like, oh, I haven't listened to that guy in like 5 seconds. Yeah, no, true. He did fall off. Basically going on to say how Kendrick's first album, Section 80, is a classic, but then other albums like Good Kid and Mad City basically got too much hype for their worth. I like how at one point he also implies that To Pimp a Butterfly was basically peak Kendrick, and he's only doing that because you know that not a single person on earth will ever say To Pimp a Butterfly is a bad album. So he's trying to sneakily diss Kendrick and change the narrative while also like sucking him off because he has to, and then obviously throwing a bit of shade saying Mr. Morale and Big Stepper was a flop. Now what's really funny about this diss is later on Drake actually misinterpreted some of the tracks, and this then caused Mr. Morale to jump back on the charts almost 2 years after it released. So yeah, nice one, Drake. I do not know how you can be so incompetent that you're basically blowing up your biggest hater. I like to imagine like the Joker is in a room and there's 2 buttons. It's like kill Batman, make Batman famous, and he just accidentally slips and presses the famous one. Now making fun of Kendrick Lamar's height, here are the lyrics. Now he's basically just saying that Kendrick is a manlet because reportedly he's like 5'5", 5'6". And as we know, if you really want to insult someone, if you want to go for the jugular, you always do it about the things they can't change. You know, if we bully someone for
One thing I've learned recently in my 31 years of life, that short top energy is very much a thing. Short top energy does exist. Those motherfuckers do exist, and they are a little bit scary. But as your local sweatpants sexual, there's nothing that you can do on me that I will be impressed by. Well, that's not true. I'll be impressed maybe once or twice. Normally. Yeah, normally. Yeah, I can honestly say that for being 31 and like, I mean, shit, I was like monogamous for fucking like 11 years, dude. But like, I mean, having a double digit body count is still just like, that was fun, thanks. Moving on. I can at least say that for the most part it's been pretty good. For the most part, I can say. There's always the. Let me see, because this number, it's 13, 14, maybe. So maybe like, yeah, I would say 10% is accurate. Probably like 3 or 4 guys are probably just hot ass. No, wait, that's 40. 10% of 40 is 4. So that's like 1 or 2, maybe 1. I don't know. Anyways, I gotta pee. I'll be right back. And we're back. So I ended up doing a little more than just going to the bathroom. I actually went and refilled my water bottle. And actually, I'm glad I went out there because fed my dogs. Got them some more water too and realized their bowl is empty. But dogs are good. They chillin'. So we can get back to chilling. Although it is a little nippy in here. It's so weird because this window looks so bright. It looks so bright. But it's honestly pretty dark in here. This is like literal hermit shit. But yeah, no, it just looks so bright on stream. It's so interesting. Cause I'm like, there's literally barely any light coming through there. Like it's really cloudy today. Well, not really cloudy. I think I can see some sky. I see a little sky. It's cloudy, but it's not like overcast. That's when it'd be like all cloud overcast. It's not overcast. Alright. Anyways, back to doodle.
Being fat, and then they lose weight. Wait, we can't bully them anymore. And then if you bully someone who's at a certain height, like that's it. What are you gonna do? Like wear Tom Cruise platform shoes? It's really funny as well because like especially with men, height is such a constant thing. I remember when I was in my teens seeing a bunch of ironic height charts going around, and it was basically showing things like if you're 6'7", that's like it's a pretty decent height, and if you're 6'5", that is apparently average. It's classic stuff like that just to mess with men's egos. Like, for example, you know, people with small wrists, you can't really make your wrist bigger. So if people have small wrists, they call themselves like a wristlet or a wrist cell. It's like, oh, it's over for me. I can't put on any muscle because
I've never heard that shit before. What the hell are you talking about? I've never heard of such shit. Like, I know I have tiny wrists. I used to hate playing volleyball. Because it's like, God, I'm like, dude, like, I'm not gonna fuck around. I do have, like, literally, like, tiny wrists. Like, my middle fingers can close over my fucking wrist. Like, I have some small-ass hands. Well, actually, no. I think I have, like, kind of big hands for a girl. But I think I have short thumbs. Every time I've looked at some people's thumbs, and I'm like, why the fuck are the thumbs so long? And I'm like, maybe I just have short thumbs. I don't know. Maybe I do have short thumbs. I don't know. I genuinely don't. I remember one time, like, one of my homies was, like, he sent me a picture of his hand. I'm like, what the fuck? Why is your thumb so big? And he was just like, what? And I'm like, nah, I think I might have small-ass thumbs. Which, I don't know. Maybe that's what makes me so ferret-like. But, yeah, nah, it's just... Are my thumbs small? Do I have small thumb syndrome? Remember the whole you put your hand in front of if your hand's the same size as your face, you have cancer, you just bash someone's face in? Or okay, so I can't say that was the worst one. The worst one, besides getting my chair pulled out from under me and just like socking that dude in the mouth, oh my god, one of my friends was like, hey, want a corn dog? And I was like, yeah, sure. And she's like, turn around. And I was like, yeah, alright. And she just fucking kneed me in the asshole. And I was like, what the fuck is... She's like, it's a corn dog. I'm like, what the fuck did... I'm going in the house. Like, I was just like, bitch, what is that a corn dog? That's just kneeing me in my asshole.
a wristlet. It's my jeans, guys. But obviously, it's something that Kendrick has just like, you know, never really been concerned about at all. He's just trying to get under his skin. And in a pretty cringy line, you've got J. Cole basically saying that Kendrick couldn't fight with him. He couldn't fight with the god because his arms are too short. But eventually, sometime later, J. Cole, you know, he had a change of heart. He was like, okay, guys, I saw the meme with Pennywise the Clown, and he said J. Cole is down here, and he cemented over it. And I also saw the meme where they said J. Cole is not down here, and someone climbs down into the sewers. And then he basically chose to pull that diss track from all streaming services. Basically just saying that he regretted to do it in the first place.
Dreamville, y'all love Kendrick Lamar, correct? As do I. So I just want to come up here and be like, publicly be like, bruh, that was the lamest, like, goofiest shit. And I say all that to say, it made me feel like 10 years ago when I was moving incorrectly. And I pray that God aligned me back up on my purpose and on my path. You know what I mean? I pray that my nigga really didn't feel no way. And if he did, my nigga, I got my chin out. Take your best shot. I'm gonna take that shit on the chin, boy. Do what you do. You know what I mean? Like, all good. Like, it's love.
Now, the funny thing is, J. Cole sampled a Meat Canyon video. He sampled the Wabbit Season video. So I find it pretty weird that you've got like incredibly famous artists and they're actually sampling like YouTubers. Now, with him pulling the track, you thought the white flag has been waved, the smoke signals have been put up in the air, world peace has finally been achieved. Nope, because 2 weeks later, Drake dropped his own diss track. Now, this was again directed at Kendrick. It was called Push-Ups and was leaked online. So there were two versions that were leaked online. One is just the original, and then the second one has no samples and it just has a very, very long outro, which was pretty funny at the time because it made a lot of people suspicious that Drake basically made an AI generated diss track. Like, if you couldn't be more lazy hiring all these ghostwriters, he basically just did like a chat GPT song. But when it dropped on streaming on April 19th, that's when everyone kind of realized, okay, this isn't a chat GPT song. Maybe. Now, the entire point of push-ups is basically to make fun of a viral video of Kendrick doing push-ups and then trying to twist it, basically saying that other artists have to push up to get to Drake's level. That will probably do their own version of Tootsie Slide. Now, Drake couldn't go for the height diss or the you fell off diss because J. Cole already played those cards. So he now tries to pull the secret diss of, oh no, you're already famous because other people made you. Like, for example, Bad Bloods with Taylor Swift, basically trying to say that Taylor Swift made Kendrick. But Drake obviously thought to himself, no, that's not good enough. So I'm just going to copy J. Cole, and then went ahead and basically made fun of his height again, especially his shoe size. So yeah, you can see here throughout the song in the lyrics, like Drake just says over and over, basically Kendrick is just a manlet, as if that is just going to somehow debase his entire like artist career. And also he wears size 7 men's shoes. And again, throwing shade at Kendrick's mainstream collaborations. And then he does this kind of cringy thing where he basically throws up a lot of artist names, you know, that aren't even involved in this beef, basically saying that these people, they're doing better than you. Like Travis Scott, Lamau, 21 Savage, Lamau.
I've been in the hills, fucking dude.
And also SZA. Now, we have a new challenger entering in the rap fighting multiverse, and that is Rick Ross. You may know Rick Ross from the meme where he gets compared to a pear because of his quite large body shape.
I eat pears now and shit like that. Shout out to all the pair.
Well, he actually joined in on the conversation 2 days after the initial leak of Drake's diss track, and he released a song called Champagne Moments. And this was basically a direct response to Drake, basically saying, Drake, sweetie, good song and all, but you used ghostwriters. And basically trying to imply that Drake is some kind of e-beggar, that he basically released and leaked his own diss track for attention. Now, these claims are really, really embarrassing. Like, if anything, it reminds me of Rita Ora. This is another artist who's like not even related to this drama at all, but she actually did a tweet basically saying, if this tweet gets 100,000 likes, I'll drop a new song, only for it to absolutely bomb into a crater, and then her having to lie on Twitter basically saying, guys, I was hacked. And then Rick Ross also made this claim, which is genius, that Drake got plastic surgery specifically on his nose to look more white, and basically said that, you know, you're calling out Kendrick for being like a grifter and people big making him, but you'd be nothing without your mentors, specifically me, Rick Ross, and Lil Wayne. So the same day that Push-Ups officially releases, Drake puts out another song called Taylor Made Freestyle. Now, with the name Taylor in the beginning, I'm pretty sure you know where this is going. So this is Drake basically just doubling down, saying like, oh, all these collabs, bro, they made you, and then you sold out, which again is hilarious. Drake pointing the finger at anyone selling out. Mr. Steak. Mr. Aiden Ross Steak. And then he makes this really bizarre claim that like Kendrick is delaying his diss track on Drake because apparently Kendrick is waiting for Taylor Swift to like save him with her album release, that being the Tortured Poets department.
But now we gotta wait a fucking week because Taylor Swift is your new top, and if you about to drop, she gotta approve.
And again, this is just a Drake yap fest, yada yada yada, you know, saying Taylor Swift made you, bro, she made you, all the Swifties, they made your career. And the thing is that was really cringe about this diss track is Drake obviously got accused of using AI in the past, but now he actually did use AI. He used AI generated voices of Tupac and Snoop Dogg. Tupac's estate in particular was really, really pissed off because, you know, big shock, Tupac is dead, and Drake didn't actually get any permission to use his voice to basically snide Kendrick. You can see the lyrics here, and it really is just Drake doubling down the entire time, just saying that Kendrick is basically the biggest Swiftie imaginable. Now, Drake is basically playing on the Taylor Swift fear factor, because if you didn't know, Taylor Swift Swift is pretty popular. Everyone likes to hate on Taylor, especially men, definitely men, because if you've seen the majority of the Taylor Swift fan base, she probably has more female fans than Curtis Connor or James Marriott. And Taylor has so much influence that what a lot of artists do is actually delay their album drops because they know that when Taylor drops, it's going to be huge and all the attention is going to be on her. And this is a really common thing in like the movie industry, the video game industry. When they know that like a bigger creator is dropping something, people will rush to get theirs out first, or they will delay it indefinitely because they don't want to be caught up in the tidal wave because, you know, they've spent so long working on a project only to be drowned out by the tidal wave of Swifties. And it's also important to note that Taylor Swift's album did actually drop in between Drake's diss track Push-Ups and then Kendrick's response Euphoria. But again, there's not really any proof that Kendrick basically waited for that. But like I said, Kendrick came out with a diss track Euphoria 10 days later. This is a song that opens up pretty normally, but it becomes like more aggressive and eerie as it goes on. And it basically accuses Drake of being someone who is just obsessed with fame. He can't get enough of it. And how he also appropriates parts of black culture for his own personal gain. And if you couldn't tell, Euphoria is actually another jab at Drake, the title Euphoria, because Euphoria was a TV series done by HBO and A24 that Drake was actually an executive producer on. And you probably think, why would Kendrick bring that up? Because Euphoria is a very successful show. It's got incredibly high ratings. Well, Euphoria itself did come under a lot of fire for how it's, you know, sexualizing teenage girls and also kind of bridging that gap between the accusations of Drake also having, you know, relationships with younger girls.
Man, it doesn't matter if you 15, my nigga. I like young girls.
Millie Bobby Brown, please come to the court. Now, this is where Kendrick goes absolutely brazy. He goes like full rent mode and is not holding back, basically saying he just hates everything about Drake in general. And he also references an interview from a late rapper DMX, who in a similar cadence basically just says like, you know, Drake, I don't like that guy very much.
What about Drake? You like Drake?
No, I don't like anything about Drake.
He also goes on to say he really doesn't like when Drake doesn't directly name drop him in his music, but more like kind of a snide, a subtweet. And then, like I said earlier, goes on about how, you know, Drake apparently appropriates black culture for his own gain. Because Drake, for example, is nowhere near as politically active as Kendrick is. And then to complete the cycle, he throws a bit of shade at J. Cole, basically saying that his album, Mr. Morale, is as much of a classic as any album he's done in the past. And then says that J. Cole basically has no albums on that level whatsoever. He then makes this threat basically saying, you know, like, guys, we better settle down because things could get heated, saying that they should wear head protection if this keeps on going. You know, also being a reference to Daft Punk because the two artists behind Daft Punk, they would wear like these huge robotic helmets before they retired. And I do find that kind of funny, you know, saying wearing head protection like they're gonna get shot. But in my mind, I kind of just think of like someone dropping like a comedically sized piano on top of them. To be fair though, if you did drop a piano on Drake, he would actually survive it. He'd pop out, he'd have a comedically sized bump come out the top of his head, and then when he goes to smile, his teeth are replaced with piano keys. Now, jumping to May the 3rd. May the 3rd, 2024 was an important day because it was apparently International Leopard Day and World Asthma Day. It was also National Lumpy Rug Day. Who makes up these days, man? So Kendrick released a track 616 in LA. And the funny thing is, he could have posted this everywhere, but he exclusively posted it on Instagram, knowing that Drake would see it, but not the entire world would see it. Almost to like bait him out. Basically saying in the video, if you retaliate to this, it is battleships, bro. It is over. It is doomsday. I'm going to drop all the information I have on you. And this on purpose puts Drake in a really bad position. Does he address it and then risk the chance of more information coming out? Or does he ignore it, but over time it'll slowly get around that people have seen this and they'll call him a bitch boy. Now, Kendrick was definitely playing mind games on him because this basically dropped straight after the Euphoria track. And this is actually mimicking beef that Drake had with another rapper, Meek Mill. And in that beef, Drake dropped two diss tracks, pretty much back to back. Well, one of them was actually called Back to Back, and then the other was called Charged Up. And these were within 4 days of each other. And he did this on purpose as a bit of a psyop to basically not give Meek Mill enough time to respond to the first diss track by the time the second one dropped. Also, one thing I didn't mention earlier about the whole connection between Kendrick and the, you know, the tailor-made freestyle. Kendrick actually collaborated with one of Taylor Swift's go-to producers, that being Jack Antonoff. Hence why Drake is kind of making that diss. And this is it. This is where the bomb drop. I'm sure you've seen that scene in Fallout 3 where you see Megaton get absolutely nuked. That bomb, that bombshell, all that negative karma. This is where Drake responded with the 7-minute diss track, Family Matters. As General Shepard said in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2.
History is written by the victor.
Drake was not the victor on this one. Drake basically was playing Heavy Rain and fumbled every single QuickTime event imaginable. So he basically tries to refute both the diss tracks that Kendrick made in quick succession, and he includes a music video of the Mad City Dodge Caravan just slowly being crushed in Drake's home country of Canada. Now, the track's title and cover art, Family Matters, it's basically a direct reference to the sitcom Family Matters from 1989. And Drake makes some very bizarre allegations in this video without any kind of proof. Like, for example, Kendrick domestically abusing his wife, and also saying, you know, what Kendrick accused Drake of in the first place, that you, Kendrick, actually have a ghostwriter. And again, I never got this cope with like famous people having ghostwriters. It's almost like saying a YouTuber has an editor and they don't, you know, make all the content themselves. Like, for example, with me, we have Para Live, we've got Paracynical TV, Paracynical Clips, the main channel. There will be a video on that very soon, by the way. There's no way that I could run all of these projects by myself. It's impossible. But still, to some people, it seems that as soon as you find out that there are people behind the scenes that are helping, it's almost like the illusion is shattered, which I've never really understood that. And then Drake explicitly calls out Dave Free, who's apparently the real father of Kendrick's son. By the way, if you're wondering for context, Dave Free is the former president of Top Dog Entertainment, which was Kendrick Lamar's former label, as well as the current co-founder of the PG Lang record label. So Drake is basically trying to address the claim that Kendrick made against him, bringing like his ethnicity into question by basically throwing Kendrick's wife in the mix. And he also goes on to say that there aren't that many pictures of Kendrick and his son together. Basically, long story short, trying to just build the narrative that Kendrick is a deadbeat dad. Now, I've mentioned that these diss tracks are coming fast and quick. 20 minutes is all it took, and Kendrick immediately dropped a new diss track called Meet the Grahams. I got a feeling he was sat on this for a while. He was just waiting for Drake to drop his diss track so Kendrick could immediately put his out as well. Now, this diss track is a lot darker. For comparison, this is as dark as those dark fantasy AI generated images that you see all over your TikTok page. So this isn't Kendrick going after Drake. This is Kendrick going after Drake's son to basically attack Drake indirectly. And also he throws in that Drake apparently has an alleged daughter that no one knew about. He brings up loads and loads of serious allegations that have just basically never been documented before. So what Kendrick did here is basically similar to what Pusha T did to Drake back in 2018. You know, Pusha T's track basically brought Adonis into the light, and Drake was like, oh yeah, Lamau, I have a kid, guys. Look how happy we are. Look at this picture of me and my son that I did not try to hide. But yeah, Kendrick is really trying to push this narrative that Drake apparently has a daughter and might even have some other kids that were just, you know, never mentioned before. Almost like Drake just seems to have in his mansion this like Minecraft villager spawner of just his children. Like there are so many unaccounted children. And he also goes on to say that Drake apparently had an addiction to prescription pills and has sexual predators working for him in OVO sound. I'll be honest, I'm that addicted to video games. When I hear someone being addicted to prescription drugs, I just think of Max Payne. Now, Drake was probably recovering at this point. He was licking his wounds clean. Bro, Kendrick didn't even wait a day and immediately dropped another diss track. So this one was called Not Like Us, and this delves a little bit more into the allegations that Drake had apparently had, like, you know, sexual predators working at OVO Sound, as well as just straight up calling Drake a pedophile. Like, I don't even mean that as like a bit or it's implied. He just straight up says it in the lyrics.
Certified lover boy, certified pedophiles.
So if you didn't get the bit, it's pretty obvious that Kendrick is trying to mock one of Drake's older albums, Certified Lover Boy. Now, I'm pretty sure most people know this, but the cover for this diss track is a picture of Drake's mansion, his Giga complex, referred to as the the embassy. And if you're wondering what all those markers are, like the one single line player in 6 Siege to actually pick someone up on a scan, it's actually pings from the sex offenders registry that have been edited into the image to basically imply everyone in the embassy is a little bit dodgy. Now, prior to all of this absolutely legendary beef, there was a conflict between Drake and popular producer Metro Boomin.
Metro Boomin, make it boom.
So Drake's last record produced by Metro Boomin was called More M's with 21 Savage. Again, 21 Savage, the guy that did the card game with Aiden Ross and Cheated. Now, this was released around a year and a half prior. Now, on that track, Drake dissed Metro Boomin. And since then, they've basically had like a bunch of spats on social media, you know, going back and forth. A little bit of snarls, a little bit of jabs, some subtweets, nothing insane. So then Metro ended up tweeting this: the best verse over this gets a free beat. Just upload your song song and hashtag BBL Drizzy beat giveaway with a SoundCloud link. Now, this is a beat to a roughly 3-minute track, and the goal of the track was to basically roast Drake as much as possible. Now, in the background of the track, you got this woman like soulfully singing BBL Drizzy over and over, and that's a nickname that basically caught on when Rick Ross in his Champagne Moments track was basically sniding Drake. Regardless how you feel about Drake, he's making a lot of enemies right now, and funnily enough, I've been caught in the crossfire because that BBL Drizzy, because that was a sample that anyone could use online. One of my mates, Dolan, actually ended up doing a diss track on me, which I reacted to.
Yes. Live, but it's all pre-recorded.
I thought he did a really good job with this, and I said to him, I was like, you should actually take up rapping. But I think he's using like a Juice WRLD filter or something.
Those are my content, but he still gets rewarded. I don't want to vent, but how's he not reported? Admits he likes inflation, but he just gets supported.
Okay, we've established so many times that it isn't inflation. Now, if you look up that hashtag right now, BBL Drizzy, there are so many diss tracks being used, like even in like different languages. This is like a meme or a roast that has just transcended continents. Now, this is when Drake released yet another diss track on Kendrick. Like, this is basically just like Wii Tennis. It's never gonna end. It's called The Heart Part 6. So this is basically where Drake goes, nuh-uh, that didn't happen, nuh-uh. And then also going on to say that like he likes all this drama because it's like a good writing exercise for him. You know, it's like, I don't have a ghostwriter, guys. I don't have one, I promise. And then also yet again bringing up the whole infidelity between Kendrick Lamar and his wife, you know, Whitney Alford and Dave Free, which is again like, you know, brought up in the literal album art of the roast. Now, I feel like I should not be the one to do this because as I'm recording this video, I'm currently listening to AAA Powerline by Echo 2K. But it's important to note that Drake got quite a lot of stuff wrong. He misinterpreted a lot of things. So first of all, Drake is basically saying that Kendrick is someone that supports R. Kelly. You know, you've got the lyrics here. If they're still bumping R. Kelly, you should thank the savior. So Drake is basically trying to accuse Kendrick of moving a lot of his songs off of streaming platforms in 2018, apparently in support of R. Kelly. Now, this is way back when Spotify removed XXX Tentacion's music and also R. Kelly's. Specifically, by the way, the music was not entirely removed. It was removed from their algorithm and also editorial playlists, mostly because of the, you know, sexual abuse allegations around each one. Now, Kendrick removing his songs in support of like R. Kelly, that was basically proven false, and it was more around the censorship of Spotify itself. It wasn't because, you know, Kendrick was supporting R. Kelly. And the worst thing is as well, this isn't like an old tweet of Kendrick being like, no, I didn't do that, that wasn't me. This was the head of TDE, Andrew Tiffith. And he also throws jabs at one of Kendrick's songs, Savior, on the Mr. Morale and Big Steppers, a song that is meant to entirely focus on how we idolize people way too much. Now, there's another lyric that Drake has like really misinterpreted here, basically spreading misinformation that Kendrick himself is the victim of sexual abuse, and that's apparently why he's so obsessed with trying to out Drake as a pedophile, almost as like a way of retribution. And if you think that's a reach, I mean, look at the actual lyrics that Drake is saying here. And again, to clarify, Drake is talking about another song on the Mr. Morale and Big Stepper called Mother I Sober, and this song is Kendrick at a very emotional state. He talks about his traumas, how it's affected his upbringing. You know, to give a bit more context as well, Kendrick is someone who said himself he is completely teetotal. He doesn't do drugs, he doesn't do alcohol, mostly because during his upbringing he was around a lot of people that were addicted to a lot of substances. But Drake has used that as a bit of a reach to basically say that Kendrick was sexually abused himself. But if you listen to the song and you pay attention for more than 2 seconds, you can realize that Kendrick is talking about his mother being abused, not Kendrick, because the Mother I Sober song basically goes into how so many rappers during their childhood, they do experience sexual abuse. And Kendrick's mother was concerned that Kendrick would face the same experience as well. There are loads of rappers that have opened up about this, by the way. You've got Denzel Curry, Lil Wayne, Common. These are all rappers that have been open about their, you know, childhood sexual abuse. And they've tried to turn that trauma into a message through their music. Now, obviously, because of this and the way that Drake misinterpreted so many...
I actually did not know that, but I don't typically look up stuff on artists. But that is very interesting. I think that's the good that more people are opening up about things that happen to them. It's always good to talk about stuff, especially if it just gets it off your chest. Definitely. And even if you can't talk to someone, dude, make a journal, like, or buy one, or just, like, find a random napkin to scribble some thoughts on, throw that bitch away. But get it out of your head. Out of your head, out of your heart.
of the lyrics. He has had, I've never seen a bigger backlash in my life. Literally everyone is attacking Drake right now. Now, I'll be honest, as an outsider, from someone that doesn't listen to rap too much, I genuinely did think that this was all staged. It was like, you know, people plotting in the back rooms, like, oh, how do we blow up, guys? How do we make this viral? It really does jump that shark to the point where, no, it can't be faked, because like at the minute, Drake is losing so much credibility. Now, even though at the time of recording this video, there have been no more diss tracks dropped, surprisingly, there have been a lot more developments. So a literal day after Drake's last diss dropped, there was an incident outside his embassy where one of his security guards was injured. Now, Drake wasn't harmed at all, but the security guard did have to be hospitalized. And when the police chief was asked about it in an investigation, he basically said that he doesn't know if this is actually linked to the Kendrick and Drake beef or not. Now, it is pretty scary when the police can like neither confirm nor deny it, but also the timing related to that is pretty crazy. But then also that same day, on the other side of the pond, the OVO flagship store in London was actually vandalized, with someone going ahead and spray painting "They Not Like Us" on the front of the shop, you know, referring to the Not Like Us chorus. And then a day after Drake's security guard was attacked, someone actually tried to break into Drake's embassy. Now, this guy didn't manage to do any damage. He was quickly arrested and then hospitalized, and Drake was also unharmed in the incident. But honestly, like being attacked like outside your home twice in a row, 2 days in a row, that would shake up anyone. Now, what always happens in these kinds of dramas is people tend to dig up a lot of old things that the creator has done in an attempt to kind of like slander them or to always prove that they were a bad person. Like, for example, the whole line about, you know, Drake liking them a little bit younger. People have pulled up, for example, this clip of him basically singing underneath a giant sperm cell. And then a lot of people obviously started to bring up the Millie Bobby Brown stuff, because Millie Bobby Brown and Drake would, you know, apparently frequently text each other, which is something that Millie Bobby Brown has said herself multiple times.
I love him. I met him in Australia, and he's honestly so fantastic and a great friend and a great role model. You know, we just texted each other the other day, and he was like, "I miss you so much." I was like, "I miss you more." He's coming to Atlanta, so I'm definitely gonna go and see him. I'm so excited. Yeah.
You and Drake, that's awesome. That's awesome.
What advice does he give you? Like, what does he say?
The fact that they were like, "That's awesome," but they both were like, "Oh." What does he say, young lady? Like, into the microphone, please.
About boys, he helps me.
What?
Yeah. He's great. He's wonderful. I love him.
What's his advice with boys?
You know, that stays in the text messages.
You know, some of these texts going back and forth saying like they miss each other. And this was something that was weird at the time. People kind of forgot about it. But now with this Drake beef, it's been dug up again. And then people have started to look into certain artists that were commissioned with OVO sound. For example, Travis Savory. This is someone known as Baka Not Nice. And he was with Drake's record label, you know, OVO Sound. This is back in 2014. And Baka was actually arrested and charged with prostitution and human trafficking. Now, like I said, overall, Drake is definitely caught on his heels on this one. This is not like a split debate. Drake has been absolutely demolished, and Kendrick is basically just doing the Dark Souls pointing down emote at him. It really does go to show, like, if people come together, it's very easy to make someone hated. And I think as well, in another aspect, Kendrick is someone who is insanely popular, but he's not on that Drake level, because Drake kind of has the I don't know how you say it, I guess the kind of more like mainstream normie audience, you know, the stuff your mom might put on in the kitchen after a glass of wine. So yeah, what's gonna happen next? My response, Drake edition.
Certified tumor. Is it true that you're gay, or is that just a rumor?
Is it true that you're gay, or is that just a rumor? God damn. People do not let Pyro fucking breathe, man. That nigga is on something else. Cause like the amount of people that just spend all day roasting this dude is crazy. But I mean, shit, at least he's getting his money up. God damn it. guess let's find something else. Legal Eagle. Love Legal Eagle. Small town. James Somerton. Gets in the penny drop. I guess Small Town.
The gods, to me, are the most fascinating element of Fear and Hunger's expansive lore. Not only are they aesthetically very cool, but they also represent some very fascinating subjects thematically. The gods come in three categories: the older gods, the ascended gods, and the new gods, the latter of which are the most interesting to me personally. The new gods are humans who have tried to claim the power of gods but failed, a testament to human ambition and greed. They are more than human and yet less than gods. Like the Cenobites of Hellraiser, they are humans given in to their desires, and who have now transcended beyond their humanity, yet almost always for selfish, egotistical reasons. This was my surface level analysis of these characters when I first played the first game, and it was enough to captivate me. Yet I knew there was more to them when I played the second game, which goes even further with its analysis and critique of human nature, with the moon-scorched and Rare's disdain and jealousy of human deities. Max Derat is a channel I have followed for years, a quality lore creator known for analysing games and media through a highly intellectual lens, especially via the subjects of alchemy and psychoanalysis. Recently, Max posted a community post wherein it was confirmed by the developer himself that Max's videos had inspired the lore of Fear and Hunger 2. One of the video series being referred to here is Max's dissection of Carl Jung's works, most importantly his multi-part series on Ion, an extremely complex book which Max breaks down in a digestible manner. I was not overly familiar with Jung's work when I first saw this post, but given I was already working on my own Fear and Hunger lore video, I realised that it was a priority that I watch Max's videos on Jung in order to educate myself. Thanks to Max's series on Ion, I now have a good grasp of the base concepts and have been able to read the book myself. When you look at the work of Jung and understand the concepts of the ego, the shadow, and the reconciliation of both into the self, then so much about the second game in particular begins to make sense. So in this lore video, I want to analyse the gods of Fear and Hunger through a Jungian lens. In doing so, I will offer my interpretation of the new and ascended god, as well as the Moonscorched and what they can tell us about humanity as a whole. I want to once again acknowledge Max Derat here. My understanding of Jung derives directly from Max's video series on Ion. I've only been able to read the book myself because of Max's videos, without which this incredibly complex book would have been impossible to decipher. I think it's right for me to start this video off with my thesis, and explain how and why I will be looking at the gods of Fear and Hunger through a Jungian lens. As I mentioned, YouTuber creator Max Derat is a well-known lore channel, who has an in-depth knowledge of alchemy and psychoanalysis. Max often explains his lore videos with a reference to these subjects, breaking down games and films, and using these subjects in his analysis. Max is particularly knowledgeable on the subject of Carl Jung, and he went out of his way to break down one of Jung's most complicated books, Ion, in a 20-part series, with each video in this series being dedicated to a chapter each. Miro, the developer of Fear and Hunger, cited Max's series on Ion, among other videos, as a source of inspiration that helped crystallize some of the ideas that were found in Fear and Hunger 2. And this does become apparent when you have an understanding of Jungian theory. Okay, so what is Ion? Ion is a book by Carl Jung which looks at the relationship between psychology, alchemy, and religion. The title itself, Ion, essentially means eon or era, with a Jungian ion being 2000 years each. In the book, Jung analyses the past 2000 years, which he calls the Ion of Pisces, and the importance of the figure of Jesus Christ, and the important role he played in the development of the collective Western psyche during that Ion. And this is of course all based on Jung's model of the psyche. I will now attempt to explain Jung's model of the psyche in the most basic of terms, and this is something he dedicates the first 4 chapters of Ion to. Jung believes that there are 2 elements of the psyche, the conscious and the unconscious parts. The conscious part of your mind is the part that is in your immediate control and awareness. The ego is the part of the conscious mind that we will be referring to mostly in this video, as it's most relevant to fear and hunger. To quote Max, the ego is you. It is the part of you that is aware and makes decisions and interacts with the unconscious elements of the world and of your psyche. The unconscious is the elements of our mind that are not under our immediate awareness. For example, emotions. There are various archetypes that exist in the unconscious part of our mind, as Jung describes it. The most relevant part of this, for our discussion, is the shadow. The shadow is seen as that part of our unconscious mind that we do not like. For example, it could be the source of your anxiety, anger, jealousy, or any other kind of perceived weaknesses or negative traits that bubble up from your unconscious and affects you. Jung believed that perfection of the mind can only be found in the reconciliation of the unconscious and conscious parts of the psyche. For example, this would require us to confront the contents of our shadow, so that we are somewhat aware of it. We can then incorporate it and bring it under the control of the conscious, limiting its negative effect on our life and conscious being. This state of balance between the consciousness and the unconsciousness is what Jung would call the self, the perfected and harmonious state of mind that every human aspires to. Jung believes that gods throughout history and cultures have represented this perfect state of man, and that Jesus became this symbol in the West for the last 2000 years. This is also what Jung calls the imago Dei, the God image, and that we should all strive to match the harmonious state of the gods. However, this is the ideal, and the reality is that the interactions between the conscious and the unconscious self can go sour. Later in the video, we will discuss such situations, as I believe both the Moon-Scorched and the New Gods can both be seen as different instances of these conflicts going wrong, with the New Gods being examples of ego inflation, and the Moon-Scorched being examples of shadow possession. And again, just an acknowledgement of Max Diracht's work, as I would never have understood any of this without his video series on Ion, and seriously, you should go check that out. For now, however, I would like us to return to the title of the book itself, Ion, and how we can apply the concept of eons and eras to fear and hunger. Ion's title refers to Jung's conception of eons, which goes by the Platonic month, that is 2000 years. For Jung, the changes of the collective Western psyche during the Ion of Pisces, 0 to 2000 AD, were most influenced by Christ and Christianity. However, within these great ions, there are also important nodal moments in history, which mark further developments, cited as being every 500 years or so. Some of the examples described by Max in part 6 of his Ion series are Jesus' birth in 0 AD, followed by the establishment of the first monastery, founded by St. Benedict in 529 AD, and then in 1000 AD Max cites the development of cults and heresies. Likewise, the world of fear and hunger focuses around important nodal moments where the world seems to stagnate, and a new divinity seems to arise to push humanity forward. It is somewhat cyclical. Allmer also takes the role of Christ in this world, and his ascension marks the 0 year of this universe. Allmer came to prominence during similar times to Christ, a period of corruption and sin. Allmer is the being who restored humanity to the old ways, to the worship of more traditional gods. However, instead of saving us from our sins, he purged the corrupt elements of the human race in an apocalyptic act of slaughter. Given the focus on Christ that Ion has, you might think that Allmer is a shoo-in for this discussion, and indeed, Miro does offer an interesting interpretation of his universe's Christ, especially in regards to the developments of the lore in the second game and the splitting of the character between the Sulphur and Ulmer characters. We will return to that in the final part of this video, but let us return to the timeline for now. Then in 809 at the time of the Fellowship, once again humanity had reached a time of stagnation and death. Thus these four new gods took control. By the time of the first game, which is set in 1590, the tides shift once again, and a new group comes to the Dungeons of Fear and Hunger. From this event at least, one new god and one ascended god would emerge, once again leading humanity into a new era. Then in Fear and Hunger 2, which is set in 1942, once again a new fellowship comes together, in a time of great strife. By this time the world has been brutalized by two world wars. From this period of tumult, two gods can emerge, the Sulphur God and the Machine God. These nodal events are directly referred to in the second game in a book called The 4 Ages of History. In this it describes the 4 different periods of modern history, essentially 4 nodal events of this Ion. These periods are the Age of Ulmer from year 0 to 410, then the Age of the New Gods of Nashra's time from 410 to 809, and then we have the reign of the New Gods of the Fellowship from 809 to 1590. The fourth age is the Age of Fear and Hunger, which starts in 1590, the events of the first game, and this is the current age that we find ourselves in the second game as well. The other pattern that one can detect within these events is the souls of those who are involved within these critical events. In Fear and Hunger 1, you are required to claim the souls of the Fellowship in order to progress into the Golden Temple, and then to the Green Hue, the soul of Torment from Chambara, the soul of the Endless from Nilvan, the soul of the Enlightened from Valtei, and the soul of the Dominating One from Francois. However, these are just the current holders of these souls, as the party members of both games are also in possession of these souls, and in the first game, each of the party members can become the new gods of Enlightenment, Torment, Domination, and Endless. Again, these same souls show up in Termina, and thus it seems as though these souls are drawn to important nodal events. The new gods are constantly usurped and replaced, and when we visit the Hall of the Gods, we can see hundreds of different new gods here, likely representing how often these beings rise and fall. Perhaps this cycle is older than Ulmer himself, and the sultans and kings that he overthrew were themselves new gods. The point of illustrating the eons of fear and hunger is twofold. The first reason being that it is simply interesting and a good foundation for understanding the waxing and waning power of the different gods of the world. The second reason is that, intentional or not, we can already see the cycle of fear and hunger, loosely following the structure laid out by Jung in book Ion, the work that will be central to my final analysis on the new gods and the moon scorched. With all that said, it is time we turn to the gods themselves, so we may understand what the new gods are trying to tell us about humanity. One of the fascinating things about fear and hunger is the fact that there are different classes of divinity within its lore. The old gods, the new gods, and the ascended gods, with each class represented by a different ritual circle. The old gods are the inhuman forces that seem to be as old as nature itself, each an ineffable representation of a concept. Specifically, they are representations of some of the most primordial concepts that govern all life and the universe as a whole. They are expressions of nature. Grogoroth himself highlights the singular nature of gods, that they are beings unaffected by the weakness of human desire and minds, as he says the following: "The older gods are too pure for this world. They are the true forms of the feelings and ideas that linger in men. But humans, they are too tainted by their own mind and ambition to understand purity." And this is certainly something we will revisit when we discuss the failings of the new gods. Grogoroth also lets us in on another truth. The old gods are no longer here. The elements of them that we face in both games are named as traces, remnants of their power only, Considering these are some of the toughest boss battles in either game, and yet represent only a fragment of the old gods' power, we can only imagine how mighty their full forms are. For example, the two main old gods are Grogoroth and Sylvian, who each represent the two bookends of life, creation and death. Specifically, Sylvian is the god of lust, fertility, love, and creation, whereas Grogoroth is the one of death, destruction, chaos, and blood. While it is tempting to find Grogoroth as evil, it is better to see him as a force of nature, a force that represents the cruel but necessary elements of life. It isn't cruel, it is just unsympathetic and unavoidable, just as death itself is. However, there is certainly a malicious element to one of the other old gods, Rare, who inflicts his madness and truth upon humanity out of spite. We are told by a couple of sources that Rare is a jealous god that inflicts Termina upon humans to keep them down and hinder their attempts to attain godhood. However, we will refer back to this subject later, because it is a major aspect of our discussion on the Moonscorched. However, Rare still fits the mold of a force of nature, as he is simply the moon and all the symbolism that comes with the moon. Again, something we will return to later. The other two main known older gods are the god of the depths and Venushka, the latter of which is the child of both Grogoroth and Sylvian. Venushka being the god of nature makes sense given his parentage, as he combines their domains of death and creation, and one cannot deny that nature is a system in which death and creation are the pillars. The god of the depths is not referred to much, but is actually the main antagonist of the first game. It is this god's influence that is afflicting the dungeon soul, and it is from its corpse that the god of fear and hunger will ascend from. In short, these beings are inhuman. They are so far removed from humanity that we cannot conceive of their true nature. Indeed, they predate humanity, and it is told to us that Sylvian created humanity. Whether Allmur was the first, or if he was just born among them, they came after the old gods had existed. The older gods are primordial, and far removed from humanity. The same cannot be said of the other two classes of god, the Ascended and New Gods. New Gods are the most numerous, and the class of deity that we know the most about because we can become one, and we can also witness the ascension of Lagard firsthand. We can talk to the New Gods themselves in Mahabharata, and they tell us why the New Gods came about in the first case. It was the abandonment of the old gods that led to the first of the New Gods to seek out Mahabharata. To become a new god, one must travel to the ancient city of Mahabharata. This city is most likely the first city in all of existence, as when we ask the new gods about the city, they reveal that this is the city of the old gods, where remnants of the old gods still reside. Indeed, this does make sense, as the city itself seems to be connected to the void and the green hue, the true primordial realm of the gods, referred to by the new gods as true Mahabharata. Thus, it is likely this city was built on this spot by the old gods, a terrestrial gateway to the void from whence the gods originally came. However, we know that the new gods have over time added to the city, as when we ask the new gods about Bethel, we learn that it was he who built the Grand Library. Ourselves and Lagard can become a new god by sitting the golden throne and travelling to the green hue. That's really it. A human becomes a sort of demigod by entering the godly void and transgressing on a realm not meant for humans, which ultimately leaves one changed forever. It seems even the predecessors to humanity, the lizardmen, also found themselves thrall to this cycle, as when you ask about the greater blights of the void, the new gods say the following. Before men, the lizard men roamed as the dominating life form. Like us, they too desired to ascend higher. What remains of those ancient times are the forms. Greater blight is something that rivals the powers of the new gods even in this day and age. It is truly curious how powerful those ancient relics were in their true prime. Again, this really supports what I said before, that the new god cycle is far older than even Allmur, and humanity as a whole. The new gods seem to have their reign in the terrestrial world. They are then replaced, and a new cadre takes their place as the active rulers. When killed and their time is past, they ascend to the Great Hall, a separate dimension that the new gods seemingly exist in. In the second game, Per Kelly implies that the new gods still pull the strings from the Grand Hall, meaning the new gods seemingly act as a collective once their active rulership is over. Indeed, it is my opinion that the new gods are the force that direct you towards the machine god, that want you to activate the 3 telectroscopes, and so that you can ultimately become one with the machine god's collective consciousness. The reason I believe so is because of the way in which we interact with the new gods in the second game. We get drawn into the Great Hall twice, if I am not mistaken. The first time is during the introductory sequence, where we meet the janitor and Rhea in Rhea's realm. To me, this could be the new gods giving you the opportunity to meet Rhea so that you may follow the threads and assist her in ascending. The second time we come to the Grand Hall is even more telling. It happens during the finale of Ending A, after we have defeated the platoon and before we meet Kaiser. This time, when we are drawn into the Grand Hall, a text appears on screen which just says, "Finally." For a long time I wondered who is saying this, but of course it is the new gods themselves who are celebrating our arrival. Their plans have reached fruition in the birth of the machine god. This makes total sense, as we will discuss later. The machine god represents the end of humanity's dependence on the old gods, and marks a human god that has reached apotheosis through human ingenuity alone, and many of the new gods have desired humanity to stand as equals to the gods. In the second game, we do indeed see the Fellowship taking their place in the Great Hall, with Shambara, Francoise, Nilvan, and Valté all having taken a seat at the great tables. The new gods are far more powerful than their human kin, with longer lives and great strength. The most relevant to the lore of the first game are the new gods who formed out of the Fellowship. The game is set in the late 16th century, but the Fellowship formed in the 9th, showing how long they have been relevant. The Fellowship was a group of some of the brightest and best of that age who sought old gods. According to the Book of the Fellowship, they first travelled there to find and confront the old gods, as the world was seemingly going through a terrible period of corruption and decline. Each of these 4 gods are reflections of their beliefs and souls, the new gods of the Great Hall being a good source for what each god believes in, and thus why they are the way they are. The most iconic of these new gods is the Tormented One, once known as Ron Chambara, a poet who believed that true art could only be delivered when you experience great torment and suffering. As such, he carries this mantra on in a more extreme manner in his godhood, having his flesh literally flayed from his body, and those who are unfortunate enough to enter his temple are subjected to torture we could not conceive of. The new gods confirm that the Red Men are victims of the Tormented One, tragic beings that have been brutalized beyond recognition. Mero, the developer, has said that the new gods are, in part, based on the Cenobites from Hellraiser, and you can certainly see this most keenly in the Tormented One, a human who desired to explore sensations beyond what was available to a mortal. This inspiration also highlights one of the main failings of the new gods. The Cenobites are themselves once humans, humans who pursued greater sensations, pleasure and pain. In a word, they sought gratification. They became what they are, not for some grand purpose, but for their own selfish desires. This harkens back to something that Grogoroth said in the dialogue we examined earlier. Humans do not possess the purity of purpose that the old gods have. They are tainted by their egos, their ambition, and selfishness. This can be seen in so many of the new gods that we meet. For example, Francois, the Dominating One, is so caught up in his own power that he attempts to prevent the next cycle of new gods by locking the Golden Temple and guarding the Golden Throne against any future rivals. Though this is ultimately pointless, as it doesn't change the fact that Francois is not a true god and is unable to meaningfully affect the world, something future Francois eventually realizes. In fact, all of the Fellowship seems to realize that they aren't true gods by the end, well except the Tormented One, who just seems to be so caught up in his own sensations that none of this really matters to him. They each realize, in their own way, that while they are immortal and have great power, they don't really make any meaningful change. They do not act upon the world like true gods, and they are little more than powerful kings. Let's take Valtael for example, another new god of the Fellowship who would come to learn the limitations of his power. He is the current god of enlightenment of the Grand Library, a position previously held by Bethel and then Nasra. The new gods of the Great Hall tell us that each of the new gods of enlightenment chooses a particular subject to study at the Grand Library. Valtael's journals and the new gods of the Grand Hall tell us that he spent his time trying to create life, believing that the ability to create life is the main difference between new gods and the older gods. Valtael is somewhat successful, though perhaps not to the degree he would like. He is responsible for the Lord of Flies, a flesh-based form of artificial life, and he is also responsible for the mechanical uteri. However, despite being seemingly pleased with this initial success, there is a flaw here, one you might stumble across when you try to take the soul of a uterus or Lord of Flies. These beings have no soul. We eventually find Valtael at the end of the rope, though still seemingly immortal, where he understands the folly of his studies, and that Nostramus was right. They are not true gods able to effect true change. Rather, they are just kings for a time, before being replaced. I think Nilvan herself puts it best when we meet her within our dreams, where she says, "This form of existence isn't the answer we were looking for. For mankind to break free, we need more. We need someone equal in size and stature to them." Thus, Nilvan is instrumental in a way that no other new god has been. She sets in motion events that will lead to the first ascended god in 1600 years, since Allmare himself. She visited Lagarde in his dreams, mated with him, and gave birth to the girl, a girl who has divine parentage and is born with an ancient soul within her. She is destined to become the next great god, and she has something that the new gods lack: purity. She is a girl who was born into the dungeons of fear and hunger. She knows nothing of the outside world. She knows nothing of joy, of ambition, or wants. She has only known fear and hunger. And with that said, in the next chapter, we will look at what actually makes a god, both in the universe of fear and hunger, and according to Jung. So even before we dive into the Jungian thematics of the game, we can see that the new gods fall short for a number of reasons. Firstly, just in terms of power, while they are beyond human, they clearly do not match the influence of the older gods, who essentially govern elemental aspects of life and whose mere fragments eclipse the power of the new gods. It seems that, in general, humans are also not pure enough to be true gods because they are too twisted by their own ego, and this really is our entry point into the Jungian discussion around the new gods. Even if you do not believe in God, consider what a god represents to society in an intellectual and moral sense. They are the perfect being, the template to which people aspire. As we discussed near the beginning of the video, Jung called the perfected self the imago Dei, the God image, and that gods are often symbolic representations of this harmonious state of being. Jung believes that Christ was that symbol for the past 2,000 years, and to quote Jung directly, "He represents a totality of a divine or heavenly kind, a glorified man, unspotted by sin." The perfected self is attained by reconciling the unconscious and conscious elements of our psyche into a state of balance. I mentioned at the beginning of this video as well that there are interactions between the two elements of the psyche that can go wrong. So let's take a look at some of those examples now, and how we can apply it to the new gods. But bear in mind that these are only two examples of such conflicts, the two that I find most relevant to the story of fear and hunger. But again, I would recommend Max's video series on Ion if you'd like a more objective take on the Ion book. The first example of an interaction between the conscious and unconscious parts going wrong is what Max calls the ego inflation scenario. This is where someone gets an inflated sense of themselves, and believe that they are the perfected self already. Believing they have achieved the imago Dei, They begin to act in arrogant and egotistical ways, despite the fact they have not attained the selves and likely have many issues to address. The ego consumes the self in this situation. This is the scenario which I would apply to the new gods, beings of inflated self-worth, who struggle to see the limitations of their position, and how far they truly fall short of the true Imago Dei. The second scenario is that of shadow possession, wherein the unconscious elements of one's mind gains control over the ego, to the point where it can influence and control the conscious self. If we do not successfully confront the contents of our unconscious self and bring them under our control and limit its influence, then the shadow can start to project itself onto the outside world. The example that Max gives in his episode on the shadow regards social anxiety. If one fails to accept and confront this particular issue, then you may begin to project these insecurities on the world instead of accepting it as part of you. You may begin to see the world as awful and out to get you, and that any issues you have with interacting with others is nothing to do with you, but is the fault of others. You begin to project this element of your shadow onto the conscious world, and in time, you may be possessed by the contents of your shadow. This is how I see the moon scorched. The projections, anxieties, and traumas of the character coming to the surface and literally possessing the character in question. Their unconsciousness becomes the external affectation of each moon scorched. But more on that soon. For now, let us return to the new gods and examine how they failed to achieve Jungian balance via their inflated ego. Lagarde is an excellent character study for this discussion, as when we meet him in Fear and Hunger 2, over 300 years since he became a new god, he too has recognized the fact he had allowed his ego to poison him. In the first game, upon him becoming the Yellow King, he believes he is special, even among other new gods. He clearly sees himself as a true god, the next god who will lead humanity into a new age, that we will effect change unlike the other, lesser new gods, demanding that we kneel before him. This certainly falls under Max's definition of ego inflation, where the Yellow King thought he was the attainment of human perfection, the god image of man. However, by the time we meet him as Kaiser in the second game, we learn that his philosophy has changed. He still wields tremendous power, yet he seemingly understands that he allowed his ego to blind him and lead him to believe that he was the one true god. However, he now claims to have abandoned the ego in the green hue, and all that remains is the self. Whether or not he has truly found balance between his conscious and unconscious self, or whether he has just traded one ego inflation event for another, remains to be seen. However, these clear references to Jungian theory reinforce the theory I have put forth in this video, that the new gods fail because they are flawed humans, and most importantly, the very type of personality that would seek this power in the first place is doomed to fail as a god. Consider the fact that if you believe you can be a god, that you deserve to be a god, then you possess a certain ego and propensity to fall to ego inflation. You are doomed to fail in attaining the Jungian self. Francois was so convinced of his own dominance that he guarded the golden throne from any potential rivals. He believed he could ascend to true Mahabre by sitting on the throne for longer than any other. Yet this was delusion, insecurity. Francois's dominance was fleeting, and ultimately he himself saw that, even encouraging us to go back in time in order to kill his younger self. Valtaire believed he knew what separated man and God, creation. He thought he would be the one to bridge that gap, and thus become a true god. Again, this was a man who fell to ego inflation, not realizing that true creation can never be achieved by a new god. Being a new god is a sort of trap, a trap for those who crave power, and a way to stifle the ambitions of humanity. It allows humanity to believe they have equaled the old gods and attain true divinity, when in fact they still fall short. New gods are just another way of keeping humanity down and beneath the older gods. Those of ambition will be satisfied with a new god position, and it prevents humanity from looking for true means of ascension. Nilvan and Nosramus are two who recognize this fact. Nilvan put plans in motion to help bring about a new ascended god, telling us that being a new god wasn't the step up that she and her companions thought it would be. The new gods can't really change anything or advance humanity. They are just powerful lords, really. So instead, she has taken steps to bring about a true ascended god. In this way, she does bring about meaningful change, in which her daughter becomes the first ascended god since Almer. Nosramus, the fifth forgotten member of the Fellowship, actually realized this truth far earlier on. Chapter 2 of the Fellowship book tells us that when they reached the city of Mahabre, a seed of doubt was placed in the mind of Nosramus. Now, these books are clearly written on behalf of the Fellowship, with their perspective in mind, and so the book says that he was tricked by the old gods because he was a man of learning and science, and they manipulated this to spin him some lies, when in reality, because he was a man of learning and science, he most likely realized the trap and the lie of new godhood. This, of course, would not serve the narrative of the new gods as a whole, and so this is why a different story is spun in the Fellowship books, that Nosramus was instead tricked. The reality is that Nosramus realized the futility of becoming a new god early on, that it's a trap, and so he decided to carry out his own studies into immortality, but on his own terms. And indeed he must have had some degree of success because he is still alive as well in 1590, somehow managing to live as long as his new god compatriots, but without godhood. Ultimately, the new gods are glorified rulers, demigods who do oversee humanity, and do manage to pull some strings from the Grand Hall. However, they are not the real forces of nature. They are not able to affect the fabric of reality like the older gods can. With the failure of the new gods well documented, it is time to turn to Rare, the old god who is most concerned with humanity and actively hampers their attempts at godhood. We learn of Rare's views toward humanity even in the first game, when he was still just referred to as the moon god only. We can meet one of his servants in the Tomb of the Gods, the Lady of Moon. This jellyfish appears from the green hue, telling us she is a servant of the moon god and that he does not trust humanity. The new gods tell us that the trickster god Rare has many schemes to try and diminish the influence of the new gods and humanity as a whole. Likewise, we learn that Pocket Cat is a servant of the moon god as well via the new gods. The new gods also tell us that the moon god is one of the only older gods who still observes humanity, and he does so because he does not want humanity to gain power via godhood. Now, with the understanding that the moon god is chiefly concerned with interfering with mankind's attempts at godhood, the actions of both Pocket Cat and Lady of the Moon make sense, as they are after one thing: the girl who would become the god of fear and hunger. When I first played the game, I just thought Pocket Cat was a creep, and yeah, he is, but when you know who he serves, then his actions clearly play a greater role in Rare's schemes. He steals children because it robs humanity of potential. Perhaps each of these children were destined to play some important role. However, in the year of 1590, both he and the Lady of the Moon are after one thing: the girl. Both he and the lady offer rewards for the girl, but they don't tell us why they want her, and if you never play the game through to completion, then you may never fully understand the significance of this transaction. This girl is to become the next ascended god, a human-born god who will be the most influential being for the next half-century, a being who will outstrip the influence of Rare himself. Thus, it is clear that he has instructed his servants to intercept this girl, foreseeing her rise as the god of fear and hunger. Yet he fails, and the next half-century is indeed dominated by the god of fear and hunger, and thus we come to the events of the second game and the Festival of Termina. What's interesting is that even in Game 1 you can ask the new gods about the Festival of Termina, to which they tell you that it is an event organised by the old gods, and that the moon god is often involved. They tell us that it is a battle royale, though they don't really understand its purpose. Though someone who had paid attention to the lore surrounding the moon god could likely have guessed its purpose, to keep humanity down. However, while this is clearly the intent when implementing the Termina festival, it seems as though it is done unconsciously. At the end of the game, Parkel tells us that Rare is actually no longer here. Like the other older gods, he has departed from the mortal realm. Instead, what is left is Rare's traces, and indeed we do fight this at the end of Ending B. Parkel tells us that the Festival of Termina happens as a result of Rare's hatred and suspicion of humanity. Even these traces of Rare that are left in the mortal realm have this aspect of his personality within him. Thus, the Festival of Termina is almost like a force of nature, a result of that residual hatred towards humanity. So nowadays, Rare does not actually plan these events consciously. They are an unconscious result of his view of humanity. But nonetheless, the intent behind these intense emotions is obviously to make humanity suffer. And suffer they do. The Termina events are utterly brutal, with an entire city of people obliterated in a brutal battle royale. A trace or no, the remnants of Rare that is present in this world and hangs over the chosen city during the Termina festival has some extraordinary powers. A very cruel power called moonscorching. Moonscorching is when people have prolonged exposure to Rare's light. In time, this light will twist the person that's afflicted, twisting humanity far beyond recognition and turning them into a beast. But a beast that seems to reflect the darker elements of their psyche. One of the most interesting lore items in the game is the book called The Truth Under the Moonlight, and it reads the following. Who of us doesn't cover their true face and hide behind a persona? In the broad daylight, we adopt a social role depending on the surrounding people. We put on a mask that works as the public image of our true personality. Do we hide our face to avoid the judgment of the people? Or do we look down in shame as the sun watches our every move? A sun that knows our deepest longings and lustful thoughts. Only in the darkness of the night does the true and vile nature of men get revealed. We share our decrepit bodies only with the select few under the moonlight. Despite what lowly thieves covering in the shadows would like you to think, the moonlight hides no one. What this is saying is that the moonlight reveals the truth of who we are, and if we apply this to moon scorching, then an interesting truth is revealed. There are lots of moon-scorched enemies in Fear and Hunger 2. Almost every humanoid enemy in the game is moon-scorched, from the villagers on the outskirts of Prehavel to the bobbies found in the centre of the town. These enemies are all twisted in certain ways. You could say that the basic moon-scorched villagers found in the outskirts are at the early stage, where they're just starting to get burned and driven insane by the power of Rare. The bobbies presumably were lawmen, people who are obsessed with law and order, and that carries on to their moon-scorched forms. However, in this analysis I do want to focus on the contestants, as their moon-scorched forms are far more colourful, individual, and tell us more about what moon-scorched is really showing us. I'd also speculate that the special souls that each of the contestants have, such as the radiating soul, the endless soul, the tormented soul, etc., has something to do with their unique transformations. They do stand head and shoulder above the other moon-scorched found in Prehavel, and perhaps their special souls, each one of them, has had something to do with making their moon-scorched versions even more powerful. If moon-scorching truly shows what we are inside, then surely the souls of people would play a part in this transformation, and those with more powerful souls would have a more powerful transformation. At least that's my interpretation of the more powerful moon-scorched variants that we find of the contestants. Either way, I see the moon-scorched of the contestants as a reflection of their inner, darker selves, their unconscious mind. It is the shadow of the Jungian model coming to the forefront. Let's look at Olivia, for example. Olivia is a character who is confined to a wheelchair, and if you have mind read, you are able to see that she hates talking about her condition and people pitying her. When transformed into the mechanical dance, Olivia cries at the player to not look at her, and if we asked what has happened to her, she says that she has always been this way, referring to herself as an abomination. To me, this is a manifestation of how Olivia sees herself. She says, "I have always been this way," when in a literal sense, she hasn't. However, her inner mind has always seen her this way, a mechanical monster, part human, part metal, reflecting her dependence on her wheelchair and her hatred for it. There are certainly more simple examples. There is Marco, who becomes the giant, fitting for a man who has tried to escape a life of violence, but who ultimately sees himself as a brute. Then there is beloved Tanaka, who takes the form of Judgment, a cutting commentary on Tanaka's life as a salaryman, where he is effectively a slave to his ambitions and his employers, and how he always feels under pressure to continually produce results for his work. I think you get the idea, but let's just go through a couple more examples to ram the point home. Karen becomes the Valkyrie, the figures from Norse mythology who would scour the battlefields for worthy dead. On the back of the Valkyrie, she carries deceased warriors. It all reflects the inner guilt that Karen has for her profession. She is a war reporter, and she feels the guilt of the war dead upon her shoulders. She makes a living off war reporting, and inside, she feels like she makes a living from the death of others. Samari becomes dysmorphia, the very name of which implies that it reflects her social anxiety. The weeping scope is of course a manifestation of Levi's trauma of being forced to be a child soldier, having a gun forced into his hands. The weeping scope literally has a gun welded to it, as if he has no choice but to be a killer. There are two exceptions to the Moonscorch that don't follow this pattern, and there are reasons for it, and this is Abella and Dan to a lesser extent. Abella has a elephant form, and this doesn't seem to really reflect any elements of her personality, as far as I can tell anyway. Instead, I generally go with the community consensus that she has been infected by the woodsman's parasite, and is transformed that way. As for Dan, he assumes a role that other people have already assumed, which means it's not unique to him. He becomes the pocket cat if he is indeed moonscorched. He is groomed for this role by the prior pocket cat. But aside from this, the moonscorched contestants seem to reflect their inner shadow. Given Miro, the developer, clearly confirmed that Max's series on Ion inspired the lore of this game, and the overt references to this Jungian theory, it isn't a stretch to conclude that the Moonscorched as well could well have been influenced by elements of Jungian theory, that they represent the shadows of our psyche brought to the surface and given primacy over the ego and body. After all, the moonlight shows us the truth of who we are, dragging out the darkness within our unconscious. Of course, Miro goes far further, with the exploration of the Jungian self in Fear and Hunger too, via the machine and sulfur god. Let's start with the sulfur god, as it ties into a character we have touched on already, Olmur, the Christ of the world of Fear and Hunger. The sulfur god seemingly comes out of nowhere when you reach Ending Sea. Perkele reveals that Rare is gone, like the rest of the old gods, and that in fact, Perkele does not serve Rare. Instead, he is a member of a sulfur cult who piggyback off the Termina festivals in order to find new candidates for their order. Only the most violent and bloodthirsty of Termina contestants will be granted an audience with the sulfur god. There are hints as to the existence of this god before the ending of the game. For example, the murderer of the White Mold Apartments appears to be a sulfur cultist, with the symbol of sulfur carved into his living room floor. It's clear these murders are a ritual sacrifice to the sulfur god, and many believe that the murderer was rewarded by becoming the janitor, who has similar face paint to Perkele. As an aside, this face paint is said to be an identifying feature of the cult by the new gods. The season of sulfur is also mentioned in the museum, as well as its symbol appearing on the clock. But who is this sulfur god? Well, our best answer comes from the man in black, aka Black Kalev, who claims to be a witness to Olmur, and he tells us about the relationship between Olmur and sulfur.
Child.
This is a long quote, but an important one, so bear
Hello,
with me.
child.
He says the following: "I stood next to your celebrated Christ, Olmur, the Ascended One, as he carved his idol.
Yes,
To condense his true essence, he carved that macabre being from the depths of his subconsciousness to confront his shadow, the unknowable, the imperfection that obstructed his
it's
pursuits of
technically
absolution.
a sweater, but it's like
As one,
actually it's
the
not even
ascended
a whole
one became
sweater. It's
two.
not even like a crop
That was
top.
when humanity
Like, you
finally
literally-
reached the heights it had always strived for. Only
I
it was
mean,
not
I
two
know,
gods
but
that
like
mankind
anyways, you're like
yearned
it's
for.
hot, but I'm
Now
like you
was it?
barely have on
If
anything.
the other one had been dug deep within
Like,
Almer's
it's like this
subconsciousness,
little like
it had to be
it's
sent
supposed to
back
be like
just
a
as
shrug.
deep,
It's like
so it
off
wouldn't
shoulder,
obstruct
but
the
it's
newfound
like
order.
like it's a
Cast
little
away,
crappy thing.
so that true absolution could be reached. Cast away deep, all the way to the sulfuric
how much they
pits.
love their little crop
But
tops
which one was it that got
I ain't
cast
about that life,
away?
I got stretch
The
marks.
conscious or the subconscious of the ascended one? So lots of interesting information here, but again we
Actually, I
get
kinda
clear
like that
reference
one
to
more.
Jungian principles, the conscious and unconscious, and this shouldn't be surprising given Christ is the central figure in Ion, the very book that inspired the developer. In chapter 5 of Ion, Jung comments on the difficulties of aligning the Christian Jesus
I thought you had a
as an
real
analogy
reason. You're
of the
just like,
self,
nah,
and I
it's
quote
not.
him now, "The Christ symbol lacks wholeness in the modern psychological sense, since it does not include the dark side of things, but specifically excludes it in the form of a Luciferian opponent." So while Jung believes that Jesus is a symbol of the perfected self for the collective Western psyche, he recognizes that strict reading of the Bible paints Jesus as one half of his model, whose opposite half is external
I've dealt
to
with
him.
enough teachers
He thus
that,
finds it
were
easier to
definitely
relate his
high off their
model
own
to the
fumes,
Gnostic or Yahweh
and,
concept of God, which in
play about
both
that shit.
instances are closer to being a reconciled being of both light and dark, or good and bad. What is interesting to me is that the developer has taken this concept and integrated it into the lore. The Almer, like Christ, is the savior of mankind and the first ascended god of this world, the first human to match the power and status of the older gods. Yet he did this not by reconciling the two elements of his consciousness, but by splitting them. Thus all that would be left is the light, the good. According to the Man in Black, Almer then
Do you
placed
want
the
the
other
chocolate or
half of
not?
himself in a totem that he sculpted and buried it deep in the pit of sulfur, in hell. In a lot of ways, this revelation by the Man in Black somewhat undermines the whole notion behind the Almer, and in some ways it's like he cheated in order to attain godhood, and as a byproduct created this being of ultimate evil, the sulfur god, who demands blood,
So they taste
death,
alright to
chaos,
me.
and violence. However, you could see the external nature of the sulfur god as irrelevant, and that together Almer and sulfur are the perfected Jungian self, the system of balance between good and evil, and I think this is the interpretation that I most like.
Did you tell
We
Shamari
also
that
therefore
both
have
me
to
and your
consider
dad
the god of
mistook him,
fear and hunger.
for,
How does it
that
fit
one dude
into
for
this
him?
universe of Jungian
Yeah.
balance? Well, I am not sure that it does,
I thought that
and
was
that
so
this
funny, 'cause
particular
both of us
god
were
is
just like,
closer to the older
like him.
gods, and that she is beyond such human
But it was
concerns.
just like, he did
When
not
we ask the
answer,
new
not
gods
once.
about the
I am
girl,
so
they tell us that she is
Well, I
a
wasn't
pure
embarrassed,
being,
I was actually just
and if you
disheartened.
ask
I
them
said
about
hi
the
and I
ancient
demanded
one,
a hi back.
then we are told that a special soul resides within her, that radiates the light of an older god. Whether this means she literally has the soul of an older god, or just that she has one
Make sure y'all
that is as
mooches go
powerful as
outside.
one is unclear. However, what is clear is the
Ice
girl
cream.
is different from other humans.
Oh, the rest of that
She
Ben and
hasn't had
Jerry's?
much of a life beyond
Yeah.
one of fear and captivity. She is also a child and thus retains her purity. I therefore think her purity reflects that of the older gods. She is born human, but she has no ego or ambition. She is just a vessel for a new god, and thus the Jungian conflict isn't a concern of hers. She is immune to the criticism levied by Grogoroth. She is untainted by the human condition, and thus is the perfect human candidate for godhood.
So is that you
If
asking
anything,
to go,
we
or
could
what are you
stretch the
doing?
Jungian analysis to suggest that she almost has no ego or sense of self, and that she is there subsumed by the soul within her, and that soul happens to be remarkably powerful and of a singular purpose. Of course, we can't wrap up these discussions on gods without discussing logic and the machine god, which is the most overt distillation of all of these ideas, and the most clear aspect of the story inspired by Max's content and Jung's work. Before we meet the logic, we have to travel through the White Bunker, a bunker once held by the Eastern Union and now under the control of Kaiser and Bremen, This is just the central bunker in a system of underground bases that was originally created and used by the Eastern Union in order to house their Operation Logic. It was this project that Kaiser wanted to hijack. What this project is and what it aims to do is more or less explained in two separate documents, the first of which explains the 3 telectroscope that can be found throughout these bunkers, great cables that connect to the central logic found in the White Bunker. This is a system that harvests, collects, and processes the consciousness of humanity, delivering it to the central logic in a way that allows it to be used as a sort of collective human hive node. Internally, it uses this information to create a new digital world within it, a shared paradise. Think the Ark from Soma. The second document, called Brain Diagram, is even more overtly Jungian, even displaying an image of a brain split between the conscious and unconscious mind at the top. The document discusses the limitations of both the human mind and the logic. It states that the logic without a human element cannot ever fully comprehend the complexities of the human mind, nor can the conscious human mind calculate to the same degree that an automated program could. Thus, it implies that the logic should be integrated with a human who is in a lucid, dreaming state. At this point, the conscious and the unconscious mind can be working together, allowing the human mind to reach its true potential. This human host would of course end up being Olivia's sister, Rayla Haas, who was originally an engineer involved in the original Operation Logic. Together, the human and logic will become a processing machine that will contain all the power of the collective human unconsciousness. In a lot of ways, this is the union of the two sides of the Jungian psyche, except for one key difference: the obliteration of the self, replaced by logic and the collective unconscious of humanity. When I first started this video, I believed that these beings would be examples of the idealized self. However, each case subverts that expectation. One separates his ego and shadow. One was born pure and without ego, and the other unifies the unconscious and conscious by losing the self in the process. Should we then consider that none of these ascended gods are true gods, given none of them truly achieve the perfect self, the imago Dei? No, that's not what I'm quite saying. Instead, I think each of them are a unique illustration of humans trying to overcome the Jungian quest for the perfected self between our conscious and unconscious self. Perhaps it instead illustrates that in the world of fear and hunger, this balance just simply isn't possible for humanity, and thus they have to seek a way to go around it, to work around it and find a different sort of balance. I think that the machine god is an especially interesting commentary on humanity and the quest for self-determination. Some wish to become gods for the sake of power, or to join the older gods as equals, whereas Kaiser wishes to sever the apron string for humanity to shed their dependence and subservience to the older gods. The machine god is the ultimate realization of that ideal. It is the god of human ingenuity, creation, and self-determination. Its power doesn't come from souls, ritual, destiny, or fate. It comes from human hands. The machine god is a combination of human invention and the limitless potential of the human mind. I love this, and the machine god even goes so far as to replace the green hue of the godly void, as when the machine god invites you in to join the collective consciousness of mankind. The area we enter is called the artificial green. Each of the ascended gods represents a period of humanity's developments, a nodal event as per Jung's concept of ions. Allmur is the human god of faith, a human who returned humanity to the rule of the older gods, and thus he is intrinsically linked to that period of human devotion and subservience. The god of fear and hunger could be seen as the god of the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages, when humanity felt abandoned, and they went through a period of immense suffering, but also change. Finally, the machine god is the god of the modern era, of science and invention, and perhaps as a harbinger of atheism. One of Jung's observations in Ion is about the rise of science, and how it eroded the traditional
The little
religious
stars in the belly
institutions
and
of
shit.
society.
And then I'm
Jung's
also
observation is not necessarily a
the
criticism
fur
of
around
science
the
in of
neck and the
itself,
fur coming
nor
off
from
the
a
back. As
religious
you can see,
standpoint himself,
the
but
wings
rather
aren't
it's
wings
about the
anymore.
loss of that central God image to which humans
So it's
strive
like one of
towards,
those,
that moral ideal, seeing Christ as a symbol of the
Oh, your
perfected
photon's still
self
talking.
and the totality to which we hope to match and strive towards. Perhaps the machine god is Miro's attempt at indicating the end of fear and hunger's Christian era, that the birth of this machine god is the end of the Ion of Ulmer, just as in the real world the rapid scientific developments of the 20th century indicated the latter point of the Ion of Pisces, of the Ion of Christ. In Fear and Hunger, the machine god is not just the union of the conscious and the unconscious self, it is a symbolic representation of human scientific development, marking the end of humanity's reliance and worship of the old gods, and the erosion of their religious institutions. And no doubt whatever remains of Rare in the sky would hate such a development. Well, I think I'll leave this video there, as it's already gone far beyond what I expected it would, and it is just a testament to how well crafted the lore of this universe is. There is definitely a chance I've gone too far with the Jungian interpretation of this game. However, even if it wasn't the intention of the developer, I hope this has started an interesting discussion nonetheless. Again, I just want to give a massive thank you to Max Derat. My understanding of Jung is directly a result of Max's videos on Ion. I've only been able to read this book myself because I first watched Max's video explanation in full, and I highly recommend you do the same if you'd like a more informed opinion on the subject, and his videos will be linked below. That being said, my understanding of this incredibly complicated subject is very raw, consisting mainly of Max's videos and my first reading of Ion, so if you think I misinterpreted anything, then please let me know below. I would be delighted if you correct me and round out my understanding on this very interesting subject. Of course, one final thank you to the developer of Fear and Hunger, Miro, for creating this incredibly rich and brutal world. But let me know your thoughts on the gods below. Do you agree with my analysis of the new gods and the Moonscorched, that they are symbols of humanity's failings? Anyway, I will now leave you in the dungeons of Fear and Hunger. Please let me know what you'd like me to cover in the future, but for now, take care, and keep an eye on your hunger and fear meters, and I will see you next time.
I'm gonna be honest, I'm giving Small Town is like, but I think I stopped listening like halfway through the video. Not gonna lie, so I'm probably gonna have to watch this later. I'm so concerned with how this goddamn rabbit's eyes look. I'm just like, oh my gosh. I am just like dead ass outright sleepy now. mm. Yeah, I'm gonna at least get up, stretch my legs. Actually, I should give this a break because like I actually wasn't meant to be drawing. I was supposed to be editing, but I got a little worn out from editing because I recorded like an hour and 30 minutes of just straight up fucking talking and trying to edit it down. Like I'm literally like a minute and a half in and already trying to put all the memes and jokes and shit in there. It's just like, oh, this is so long. But it's gotta be done. It's gotta be done because I gotta put the video on YouTube like before the new Elden Ring DLC comes out. And yeah, nah, I just gotta suck it up. Suck it up, do it anyway. And Christ, what is in my eye? God, eyelashes keep touching my eyeball and making it itch, and I'm like, it's driving me insane. Like sometimes it is dry eye because I had LASIK done in 2018, and then I also am on Adderall and bupropion, so all the moisture is definitely getting sucked out of me. But it's also around that time where my eyelashes are shedding. If you didn't know, your eyelashes shed every 3 weeks with your cycle if you have one normally. But it's driving me up a wall. Jesus. Stop stabbing me in the eye. But yeah, uh, I need to get back to editing that video because it's already taken long. No, I'm just being a fucking baby about it. No, I mean honestly, if I had the RAM, I would just do the editing live. It would be funnier that way. Honestly, but I don't have the. I don't. There you are. I don't have the RAM for it. My poor little 16 gigs is it's pushing all it can right now. So I won't stress it out. I won't stress you out either. But yeah, nah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully you have a good day. Um, Probably won't stream again today. I didn't even talk about the concert that much. That's another thing I need to do. I need to edit that footage too. So I've got stuff to do. I'll crack open that next Red Bull and get at it, shall we? Anyways, bye bye.